Hey guys, what's up? How you guys doing? Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I am just going over some stuff, so I'm a little late today. I had to go through and kind of take care of some other stuff. Reading through, I was doing a bunch of stuff, and I just looked at the time and realized there was no way I was going to get it done. So I had to put those things first before I came in, and then plus trade and try to get all the stuff in from there. So, anyways, um, real quick, I want to kind of go over real quick what's going to come up for the week, some of the big announcements that we have coming out, so that we know what's going on. What's going on? Anyways, and so one of the things I want to bring up, and this is really important, is October has typically been known as just a bearish month, right? Just overall in the history of um, just the stock market, the markets in general. And it's real interesting to see what's actually going on with crypto and what we're seeing kind of going sideways a little bit up. So it's real interesting to see what's happening. So I'm a little bullish on that, just simply because of what we're seeing. But let's go over the quick week ahead this week for any major economic reports that will probably move the market. And what I do is this is investing.com. Come to the economic calendar, and what I do is I look for three. This means that the star ranking system lets us know when you have 3 stars, it means that it will most likely affect the European market. You can see here the nation or the country that it's sitting at, and it will affect their stock market. So these are some things you can play off if you're a news junkie, you like trading news. These are some of the things you can do here, or reports, and because that typically makes the market go back and forth. So real quick. So we can see here for Monday really wasn't anything, but as we move into Tuesday, you can see here, where's it at? There we are. We have the CB Consumer Confidence report coming out, and so this is going to be at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock West Coast time. You can see, and that'll probably move the market substantially. We are moving down since Monday. We rallied up last night, um, and then we dropped down into the evening. So it's something to be what they're doing. And then now you can sit here and see that we rallied up last night up into our supply zone that we've been talking about. And now they did sell off this morning. I haven't looked at the market since I traded it this morning. So it looks like we're all the way up here. So that's interesting. We're retesting that supply zone um, into this area. So we'll find out what happens. But be ready if we do move up for the day. Um, then that'll be cool. I've actually got a few couple people that I've really been talking with on other platforms, and I've been digging off of some of the content that I met them in. That they post some pretty dope, like interesting news and things of that nature. So I really like them. I like them a lot. So if I bring them on, you'll see why. You'll see what I see by the intellect that they bring to the table, the news sources. Some are from other countries and have different views, and so I will probably um, have my own opinion as always. But I want to hear their opinion because they're from other countries, other places in the world, and so they do bring a decent understanding of the markets and what's actually going on. So that's really important to understand, right? To always not to be an echo chamber. That is the most. That's actually probably my biggest fears in life is being an echo chamber, right? Of my own opinions. That's probably my biggest fear. So I want to make sure that we understand that, um, right? Always hearing because there's always more views than two, which is conservative, and the liberal. There's a lot of other stuff out there that we need to be able to see what's going on. Because as we keep moving forward, we're definitely seeing a censorship of just open news sources, right? That's probably one of my biggest fears, that I don't like. So I um, I want to make sure that I'm basically really contributing to you guys seeing other views. That's really what it is, right? Like the more views you have, the more ability you have to wage war, right? There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about that. So I would say, look, right now, you're basically waging war on your own finance. The world is waging war on your own finance with inflation, the things that are coming in and out, and to understand that is really, really important. Primarily just because uh, people get screwed over without understanding what is actually going on in the world. So that's actually what happens. So I always tell everybody, look, um, check out what's actually going on. So that's always why I'm trying to bring people into our into the world of what we're doing, right? Because if we get people to check us out and see what's actually going on, it's going to help out people overall. Um, so yeah, give me 1 second. One little thing here. I apologize about that. Oh, we have another guest coming in right now, so here we are. Boom. Dang. What is this? Delete a message. Link without authorization. Alright, so um trying to get people to come in. Alright, so we have somebody else coming in here real quick. We'll find out they are able to pull in. Okay, coming on perfect. Check it out. Cool. So let's go ahead and go real quick into the news section. So for Wednesday, as always, they have the crude oil sales that come out for inventory. Lets you know what's kind of going on. So that will be in more of the morning time as we see. But then we also have, and we have new home sales kicking out here for the last week, and we'll be able to see what's actually going on with that. Um, Obviously, like I've talked about crude oil and crude oil always coming out and how it moves the markets. Again, on Thursday, this is Thursday, yeah, Thursday, we have the GDP for the third quarter. And in additionally to that, this would definitely be a market moving situation. Initial job claims at the same time, guys. So this is going to be a big deal. It'll probably move the market substantially. Um, be ready for that when that happens. That's going to be 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Western. And then, excuse me, I don't mean to burp. Core CPE or the price index movement, this will move the market as well. So the way the market typically works is it will rally off of one thing in the evening and we'll see a drop down into either, if we rally up in the evening, be ready for a sell off into the news source. So to be paying attention to and understand what's actually going on with that. The other side behind it as well is, oh snaps. What's up, Strike? I'm about to bring you in, my boy. How you doing, brother? Dang. Look at you all professional, bro. Oh, we can't hear you. We cannot hear you. Something's going on. Are you on mic?
I believe I turned my mic off.
It's all good. It's all good. If you could, you're a little loud, and maybe I'm a little soft. If you could just take the mic away just a little, that'd be dope. Just the way so that we can, if we're not
All
blaring.
right, that's probably a lot better now.
Oh, perfect. That is perfect, my dude. Perfect. So I'm going over real quick the movements of the markets here for the coming up week. I typically go over news announcements that might or report announcement that may move the market. So I always kind of want to let my viewers know what's going on. Now, I figure as I keep growing, people will keep checking us out and see what's going on with that. But it's definitely a situation that I always want to let them know because I've told enough people now where I'm like, look, the market's going to go down in this report because we're going up into the report. Right, I had one guy heckling me, and then over enough 3 or 4 times, he realized maybe I should just play his play. So and I
Well,
had
there's a
one
lot
guy.
to report this week, isn't there?
Yes, yes, we've got some big plays. So we probably will see sideways action where one will push it up and one push it down, and so we basically ping pong off of SMAs and demand and supply zones. That basically what institutions use to trade the market. So it's real interesting. So anything that you want to bring up? I just went over CPI, unemployment going on Friday. I think on Thursday, and then Friday we got the GDP stuff coming out for the
I
quarter.
think
So
Friday's another inflation report, or is that what you talking
yeah,
about the
yeah,
consumer price index and that type of stuff earlier?
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was.
I
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah.
No, I
But
think we have consumer confidence coming out, which will probably be my guess is lousy because everyone's still they're coming up into Christmas not knowing if they have enough money or not
yes,
to buy all the presents they want. Obviously, all the commercials and the retailers of the world are telling us we don't have enough money because we need to buy more. There's crap. That's
right, right. Hey, fill your life up with happiness. That's called crap.
right. But one of the interesting things that is coming out Wednesday that it kind of is a precursor to the whole Christmas season and dealing with the supply chain issues is China's GDP is coming out, and we all
Yes.
know that's somewhat of a manufactured number, and they've been rising forever and ever. But just even how they manufacture that number gives us a good indication on things that are going on. And if their GDP is as predicted to not grow as nearly as much as it should have, that means a lot of the stores are going to be short on supplies again because their economy is just hurting. Which means credit's tighter if the manufacturers over there can't borrow as much money as they used to be able to do, and thus it'll affect us in the holiday season. Now, that being said, a lot of the Target and all the big stores, they already have all their stuff they want to sell. They've planned for this. But most of the sales in our economy are not through Target and Walmart. Most are small businesses that do source through third-party wholesalers and independent manufacturers that source from China and things like that. So it could be tough.
I think one of the things I think you'd also talk about real quick is also the fact is that Biden did just step in last week and really put the kibosh on any type of conductor business, and how he's really just saying, you know what, China, if you're going to be like this, we're about to handle you, right? And so made all of basically stop a lot of business between any type of conductor.
That's right. And what I think, Pedro, what I think a lot of people forget is we in our general collective minds, we've written the semiconductor off to China and that everything's made over there and we're basically at their mercy. Well, we're just at their mercy for their manufacturing capability.
Yep.
All of the advanced chips that are made are pretty much designed in North America and in Europe. Yep. And then we basically license that technology to factories in China to make them. So we're still the home of the semiconductor industry from a R&D level and the basic high level manufacturing. But the bulk of it's just made in inexpensive places in China. And so that's really just a supply chain issue that supply chain issues take time to correct, but they are easy to correct. You can make a plan and you can work it out. The hard thing is correcting the research and design because you have to rely on putting money into it and on someone coming up with a good idea. That's different than just planning out logistics, which is definitely a problem worldwide. But it is a plannable event. You can plan.
Yes. I think one of those things I think you can nail out, and I think real quick, even talk about, how we're planning things and working with Mexico, South America, even into Africa, right? South or East and West Africa, and what's actually going on there. That because these are basically another area from an economic standpoint where we can get cheap labor, right?
Well, it's interesting because China's whole Belt and Road project has spent a lot of money in Africa in upgrading their infrastructure. A good example is the massive new railway they put in to replace an old one in Kenya from Mombasa all the way, I believe it goes to Uganda. And it's nearly complete. China's whole Belt Initiative is kind of struggling right now because of their economy, and that whole shipping corridor
Yes.
is prime for
Well,
setting up basically a I forget what the companies along the U.S. border are called in Mexico, the maquiladora uh,
yes.
uh,
Maquiladora.
factories, and that have access to there's great airports in that part of
Goods and
Africa for
services.
air
Yeah.
freight, and there is a natural port at Mombasa, and if there's a new railway there, that's a great place to put some factories and take advantage of the labor costs there and get it out of the political system that China is.
You could have said a better, dude. You could have even said a better, dude. Like, I mean,
We didn't plan this, everybody. I just
no,
popped on here to help them.
yeah, dude. First of all, I typically stick to just like charting, you know. I mean, and I'm not a fundamentalist, but I just do a ton of reading, and I want to stay involved with what's actually going on. So, but that was dang, you nailed it. Dude, that was so good, bro. Um, I you know, I look at the world. Listen, you need to argue with me, okay? So you need to figure out ways that we don't, you know, we got to have juxtaposed ideas, right? Um, I think one of the things that I do see as we keep moving in now, we see he just got reelected this past week or weekend, and then the idea between what's going on in Taiwan and how they've reestablished the people or a new initiative or more direct focus on really trying to take over and positioning their focus on Taiwan. Like I think that's probably one of the biggest hurts, you know, because it does take time to set up um, the why am I what's what am I looking the a lot of the microchips that are established that they build there, they have the talent, they have the smarts, they actually have that. So that can be a very much granted a lot of the gold, and the thing is they are the first or second largest holders of gold in the world, right? Like they have a ton, so they can actually set that
Right.
up and build up. But America has a lot of friends like that. We have a lot of friends. That's the biggest thing, right? Your network is your net worth, right?
Right.
Even though we have a negative GDP, right? Literally, like we're literally negative. People don't realize that, like if you
Yeah,
look
when
at
you
the
count inflation, it's not doing well.
oh no, bro, it's right here. It's literally here's the debt. Here's the debt clock, man. I was looking at this with a friend of mine, and let me jump in here real quick. Boom. Let's go back here. If you look at the GDP over national debt, like we're literally negative. Now, granted, this correlates with inflation and what's going on there, but that's a real deal. Like, you know, and this is picking up and this is slowing down. And so I think it's another,
Right.
it's, but we still got
It's
friends.
yeah,
Right?
that's an interesting page there. It really is.
It really is. I think my funnest thing that I love to look at are these three things: the U.S. unfunded liabilities, basically that we're going to pay like our war heroes, people who we have to pay pensions, things like that. This is the real debt. This is the real debt you
Right.
do really need to be paying attention to, right?
Our
Once
grandkids are going to be paying that for a long time.
a long time. Our great grandkids, and it will just keep increasing. Like that's. But one thing I do love to point out is, look, back in 2013, you needed 9,571 crypto, whatever it was, right? Total to equal $1. Now you need $21, right? And since the downturn of crypto, this was at $10. Okay, at the peak. Now it dropped down to 21, 27 to 1. But here's the thing. We know we're going to probably be in, and I don't know your view on your thoughts on, but I think we got a 1 to 2 year low here where we're going to keep going down. We have some economic situations that are go. So I think we'll be in this bear market for about a year or two. Which hence, once we rally out of that, we have seen a 10-to-1 ratio. This very much could be literally a 2-to-1 ratio in the next bull market, right? Potentially
Right.
even a 1-to-1 based off of what actually happens overall in legislation. So that's one of those things I think is really interesting. What are your views on that?
I'll have to say that they're very similar. And one of the things I like to say in the bear market, which applies to this as it applies to the stock market and that level of investing, is that the money has to go somewhere. In a bear market, when say a company, JP Morgan or somebody says we need to reduce our exposure to the stock market by 10%, which is a lot of money for a big company like that. Say they pull a couple $100 billion, out of the stock market. They keep some of it in cash, but they got to put that money somewhere else because they want it to grow. They want to keep it from shrinking, but they want it to grow. And one of the things we've noticed is, as in the past year, as the retail level people have come out of crypto because they just didn't know what they were doing and lost money.
The fodder.
The major investment houses are setting up big internal teams regarding crypto and stuff like that. So in the bear market, I think they will be pulling money out, and I think this is how your ratio works. I'm not that you're referring to, not exactly sure, but they're going to be putting it somewhere, and they'll have a little bit higher risk profile than just cash. And one of the things we've seen recently is Bitcoin has actually been less volatile than the S&P 500, and in the past, I don't know, couple of weeks, something like that. And I think that's kind of been driven by the fact that larger institutional people are in the house, are putting their money into crypto. And so we always knew that when the institutions would get in, there could be big moves when they, because the market is still not as liquid as we want it to be. But I think you'll see that ratio get closer to 1-to-1, even in a bear market, because they got, like I said, they got to put their money somewhere. And if they leave it in cash too long, even in a bear market, the investor starts saying, why do we have $50 billion in cash? Let's put 25 billion of it somewhere. And I got to tell you, people are throwing money at crypto still. It's not really, the meme cryptos and that type of stuff is its own market. We can forget about talking about those in the serious mode of investing, but we can talk about investing in crypto as it revolutionizes the money and payment infrastructure of the world. And so there's a lot of money being thrown at that. And even during a bear market, I think people are going to have to major investment houses will be putting money into that, which should tighten up that ratio.
Yeah, and the ratio is basically based off of adoption. It's really what it is, right? How much money is actually going into crypto, into the actual ecosystem that allows people to be able to the value of an actual crypto. So, I mean, the biggest thing is this, so over the last 2 quarters, we've actually seen a pull out of investments into crypto in a sense, right? Like a lot of people have been pulling money out, institutions, and one of the things though we're seeing though is an increase in investments when it comes to the backside behind crypto, meaning they're going through and they're investing into projects, not necessarily the coin, but actual VC venture capital money going into the crypto projects that are potentially be the next darlings of the market, right? So it's an interesting thing, right? Because right now, currently, like what's his name? Our friend Warren Buffett. And people say, wait, what do you mean friend? Right? Like you're like, wait, what? Warren Buffett has been outright against crypto. But yet one of his biggest holdings in his portfolio is Zilla, right? The gaming company Zilla. And their whole entire push now is to actually reward people in Bitcoin, where they're accumulating Bitcoin as we speak. So up to, I don't know, since the SEC finally kind of got involved into crypto, we've heard a lot of people outright say crypto's wrong, it's BS, we don't believe in it. But now they've all kind of shut their mouth real quick because they don't want to deal with the litigations and all the stuff that correlates with the SEC poking their head into your business. So it's really interesting to see now who's talking, who's still negative. I mean, when I heard about Ray Dalio with Bridgewater going through and now willing to offer a lot of stuff for crypto. And then last minute he goes, and not last minute. He's been talking about it, but he's now saying, I'm retired. Right. So now hands off, you can't touch me. Right. It's like, so it's very interesting. Right. Like, there's a lot of, at least where I live, I'm up in the Northeast, and a lot of people here know that Stephen Cohen, who was one of the biggest traders in the world, right? I forget his hedge fund. He got in trouble for insider trading, but his son his son is completely involved and loves crypto. Has a whole entire hedge fund that's non-established, right? It's personal funds, but
Right.
So it's interesting thoughts. I mean, your thoughts.
Well, I say a similar note about the Steve Cohen brother. Interesting thing I learned the other day is one of the things I do is I split my time. I'm here in Chicago right now, but I split my time between here and Ottawa, Canada. And so I follow Canadian politics and the crypto regulation and all that. Turns out that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's brother is involved in a crypto project as well.
Shocking.
And I know.
What? He hates crypto.
I know. Amazing how that works. Yeah. And so the idea that high profile insiders and their extended, group Family. Of people they influence are involved in these projects because they know that, what many of us know is that it's a growing thing. It's gonna have mass adoption, and the early adopters now are going to make it or break it.
Yeah, I was actually.
What's your Twitter handle? Could you drop it in the chat for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Give me 1 second. It's interesting because the other day I was sitting there and I was talking to a friend of mine, and so we were going. I'm a chartist, right? I don't claim to be a fundamentals. I'm not even pretend. I didn't go to school for it. I am not. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't. I'm not. I just every day I go in, I read. If I don't understand something, like I'll just straight tell you, oh, I don't understand that, man. What are you talking about, right? You talk about an economic because I want to learn. I'm always here. If I don't know, I'm not going to pretend I know the funk, right? I won't, right? Because then if I get called out, then I'm like, well, I really didn't know, right? So then you lose face. It's best to say, I don't know, bro. Sorry, but I say that because one of the things that I've noticed, right, is you have a lot of people. Come on, what's going on? Why is this? Oh, there it is. All right, boom. I'm trying to give you my Twitter handle.
Yeah, I know you're here somewhere. I couldn't find it either.
Yeah, it's if you go up on top, I'm actually the Twitter with I have a very basic layout. If there it is, boom. Here we go. I'm going to give it to you right now. I'm going to put it in the comments section here. So, boom.
Oh, I got it. 70 ends in 79.
Yeah. PDR. There we are. Boom. Yeah, check it out. It's very interesting is that as we're seeing what's actually going on internally within these big guys, in crypto, it's so brand new, like legit, and there's so many different ideologies going in it that you can truly say that I can go into something. You can get into crypto right now, these early adopters, and literally get ahead, right? You can get ahead, establish yourself as an expert because it's so brand new. You were just learning how it's working, right? And there's so many different aspects. And I'm not saying that it's going to fly in the face of fundamentals and that aspect, right? But it will fly in the face of the way traditional markets have worked. And so it's almost going to be like a new. So by us getting into it and really get our hands and ankles deep, getting neck deep up in this mess, you're really going to be able to come out ahead in 5, 10, 15 years as an expert. And truly say, oh, I remember when XYZ happened, XYZ. Oh, I remember when Bitcoin hit 20,000. I remember when it dropped from 20,000 to 3,000, right? Like, and even the OGs who are able to be in crypto when it was at 500 or, Bitcoin at 500, i.e., right?
Well, on that note, I just this morning I saw a story that CNBC just put out out for streaming consumption that they run on their late night things, and it was an hour-long story about the 120,000 bitcoins that got stolen from Bitfinex in 2015 or 16, whenever it was, and they interviewed a bunch of people from it, and they interviewed them now, not back then. It's a current story talking about the prosecution wrap up and all that, and they're talking about how the people were so distraught because their bitcoins that were worth, the guy was talking about how he lost 25 bitcoins, and he said, yeah, there was a lot of money for me because they were valued at $600 each.
Oh, wow.
And because of the hack, Bitcoin immediately dumped to $400. And so I just started laughing. I'm like, and of course, so did the person being interviewed. He's like, now if I still had those, obviously they'd be worth, a lot more money. And that, everyone's comparing them to the highs of what they are, but just compare them to what are we at today? 19,500 or something like that. 19.2. And it's going to be the same in a few years as well. It'll be like, oh, remember when it was under 100,000? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Those people sold and bought pizzas with them. And so it's at almost no point, except for the people that bought in November. I mean, there's only been 1 month that it's been bad to be a buyer of Bitcoin. And that was basically, what was it, in November, about 45-day period in November and December of 2001. And if you bought pretty much any other time, it was great.
Well, I think you just stepped on something that most people don't realize. 2001, right? Most people think that you mean
2021.
Yeah. Okay. But most people actually don't realize that crypto has been here for a long time. Like, it's not something that just kind of stepped on. It was just started adopted and started getting moving. Bitcoin was not the very first crypto out there, right? People don't realize that, right? They use it as an analogy, and it's the first one that really kind of took full adoption, and really people started getting behind it and getting it going. But there were other ones that were out there. I actually had a friend of mine back in the day where he was actually buying crypto, and he actually even brought this up to me. He goes, "What are your thoughts on crypto?" This was back in 2011, and I said to him, I go, I think it's silly. I think it's dumb, right?
Same thing.
Oh, I'm such an idiot. Dude. Like, you just didn't know, right? We didn't know. You didn't know. It was funny.
Well, we did. We did know because it was new. And
right.
I've been a techie and a nerd my whole life as far as adoption of new technology. When voice over IP came out, I built a voice over IP phone system. When PHP came out, I've learned how to code that myself to pull stuff out of databases and things like that. And I was like, and I do remember reading articles about Bitcoin and saying, oh, you got to log on to this weird website and do this, do that, and make a wallet and this. And I actually kind of looked at it, and then I got distracted about something else. And I was like, why didn't I teach myself about that then?
Oh, man. Yeah, that would hurt right here.
I have a famous story that I tell, that I've told viewers on my show a lot, and those that I meet in crypto, is that if I had listened to my son, who at the time was 10, or maybe 12 or 13, I would be a millionaire many times over, because he said, "Dad, you got to buy this thing called Bitcoin." And I was like, "Well, son, your mother and I only have a few dollars that, for savings right now. And I think it was around the Christmas time. And I'm like, that's a little risky right now. That 3,000 could turn into, 900 pretty fast. And, that kind of stuff." And he never lets me, because it was when Bitcoin was at $76 or something like that. I think that's what it was. So he never lets me live it down. And so that when he told me, once again, many years later, in fact, March of 21, he said, "Dad, there's this thing called SafeMoon." And I'm like, "Oh, and it's crypto again? Yeah, I missed it out on it." And he's like, "You're not missing out. Get in now." So all right. So I learned the whole pancake swap thing, get Trust Wallet, and immediately, made an absolute killing. It didn't sell at the right time, but it came down a lot. But like my son, who's 20 now, reminds me, "Dad, if you'd only listen to me about crypto."
That's the thing. We're gonna have millions of those.
Yeah.
we're still in. It's like being a part of um, America when America first came, right? And you understand, you see the potential. So when all of a sudden Boston, a city, comes in and starts to get built up, and you're like, you know what? I think I'm gonna buy a big piece of this here. I think this might be a big deal. You know, and 200 years down the road now, it's like, bam, like in your face. Thank you. Have a nice day. Boom, right? Like, um, it's a big deal, right? Like we're still at that point where Boston is getting built. Hartford is getting built. New York is just getting underway, right? It's still just 2 rows of um, streets, and it's not that big. It's what I'm saying. Like it's now, will it go much faster than 200 years? Absolutely,
Well,
absolutely.
I'm sure that anyone that watches this show is either live. We have a couple of people watching live, or on the replay. They already know this. Uh, they know they're part of the early adopters. They're part of the group that believes. There's not any new viewers are going to tune into this thing and go, I think I will learn this today. And tell me the stochastic, and so that's not going to happen. But what they will do is they do want to know what's going to happen this week. And I started when I came on, you were just finishing that up. And I think maybe you should circle back and say, striking, this is what's going to happen this week. What's going to happen in this week?
Striking. What's going to happen this week? What are your things? What are your predictions on the movements and like I say, movements. I don't say price points typically because anything in trading is if and then statements, right? But it's something that what are your thoughts on Bitcoin's price
Well,
right now?
I'll give you my personal opinion of this week, and then you tell me what the technical analysis says about it. My
Yes,
personal
sir.
opinion is that this week's going to be just kind of crappy, if that's a fundamental term or not, because the news being released this week, I don't anticipate it being very good. The people behind the scenes are already saying there could be another, 3/4 of a point or even a point raise in the
Yeah,
Fed's interest rates. China's economy is going to show more weakening as well. And the credit markets here in the U.S. are going to be like, "Hey, we're full, and the Christmas season's coming up." So it's
yeah.
gonna be a little bit of an issue, um, but not like a. I don't believe it's gonna be a long term issue, right? But I'm just talking about this week. Gonna see people just kind of playing around, trading, looking for some short term deals. To make a little bit of money, move into more of in the crypto. That means more of us will be doing day trading rather than planning. And we'll get to Friday. And then if there's any sort of good news on Friday, we'll see a pump. Or good news in crypto is just not bad news.
Yeah,
Good news doesn't
yeah.
need to be good news. It can just be mediocre. So my personal opinion aside, what's the TA telling us what's going to happen this week?
That's actually great. You know what? Like you said it perfectly, because we have such major news actually going on and what we're seeing in the markets. We're definitely seeing a ping pong effect, right? Many times when we look at reports, what they'll do into the evening is push the market up into the London aspect, and then or the London Open, right, into the
Right.
close. And then in that same sense, they will then reverse it. So one of the things we want to be paying attention to is as these reports are happening, right? Like last week, we had a few reports that came out, right? And so I actually went on to it was a Twitter account I was talking. It was this here, and so it was this rally here that we saw into last week. Or wait, excuse me, it was this one right here. This rally into it, and so I said by the end of the week, or I said by the end of the day, we should see it back down at the lower levels here. Well, I was off. Yeah, I was absolutely off, yeah. But the next day, as we opened up, we came into a supply zone. We saw a sell off because they had pushed the market up with no real institutions of people coming in and establishing orders right here on the demand wicks, which is basically the wicks at the bottom. And so I was saying to them, we're going to see a sell off that day, but we didn't. We waited till the next day to see a sell off. Now, again, here we also had another report than which we sold off of, right? So this is the same thing that we do see. We see a rally up. If you don't see major wicks coming into the evening prior, you see more seller wicks, which means that you see a rally up. Hey, what's up, Mako? How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. You see a rally up from this level here, and then to see a sell off into areas of higher time frame zones. So let me point out here from more of a techie standpoint. So one of the things that you want to look when you're looking at higher or reports speed movement, they're going to push the market up into a higher time frame SMA or supplier demand zone. So that's typically why you see me playing with the weekly and monthly zones as we've been moving. I've talked about we've been in this sideways pattern between the 20,500 mark to the 18.2 mark here, simply because you can see it's playing off of this. So now we're starting to come down where we see the 50 period moving average establishing a resistance level right here. So for me, I'm looking this at once if we pass through and we sell off of that 50 period moving average and we find support, which we may see it come back down in here, which is at 1800, be ready for a sell off down into this level. But then at the same sense, you need to be mindful of the weekly chart and monthly chart that we're playing off of, right? And so
Right.
we'll see here. We can sit here and see that we have the 50 period moving average as well as the 8 period moving average. And also, we also have some big demand wicks. Now, I want to point this out, like I've talked about last week. We're having a deceleration of volume stepping in. And we're actually overall in general, where the people aren't playing. So that means that if we do start to see a major sell-off and we start to see them step in, we will see us bust through our lower area right here, down into our 17,000 mark here, down at these levels. Now,
I don't think that's going to happen from a market perspective. I think it's going to. I think our floor is right in that low 18,000s.
Well, here's the thing: we're also coming up to October 29th, right, which has been historically major sell-off pressure. October has been a major sell-off pressure historically, and so we haven't really seen much in crypto. Will it buck the idea of a sell-off? I don't know. I know though from a correlation view that we've been playing now with we pulled away from correlated to the S&P 500, and we're playing with do indeed need to cover ISO 22. I'll check it out, my friend. I'll check it out. But are we seeing
standards based regulation that market based regulation by providing international standards? It's an ISO standard that can apply to crypto, and Mako's want me to talk about it on the show. So
okay, yeah, do it, man. I'll just finish this up here.
I'm not going to talk about it now. In the future of the show, he's one of the things that could be good for crypto.
Is this the one that
come for this conversation?
Okay. Well, I'll break it down here real quick. One last thing. So the problem is that we haven't hit the 29th, right? That idea is that, or the end of the week typically is a pretty bad week, right? Saturday's the 29th, 28th. So it all depends on what happens on this last week. We have some major fundamental news, right, coming in that if it's pretty bad, we could see us also again pull away from gold. With right now, we're having a correlation with, if I was to bring us as a,
right.
We'll go into this in a second, but that's my biggest thing is, are we going to decouple from everything? And are we going to see a sell-off? We are seeing hardly any real volume coming in, okay? And that to me indicates that that's money on the side waiting for an opportunity to either push the market down or push the market up. So we've hit this level a few times, that 18 area, okay? And now, yes, there are buyers here, but in relation to this area or even a few months ago where we hit bottoms, we didn't see major buys right here. This big candle, this big move right here, we saw hardly any real buys here. So that's why, to me, an indication of we potentially, by the end of the month, could see us down below here. And so that to sit there and say, oh, this is an area that will probably stop, I don't know. Like, I don't know, but I am hesitant with that aspect. Okay, just simply because we've traded in this area a few times now, right? So if we step in, we start to push through.
Right. I see what you're saying. Because of the lack of big buys at that level, if it goes below it and those buyers aren't there, it could bust through on the downside. I see what you mean. I don't think
Yes.
it's going to happen, but I see what you mean.
We hope. Hey, I say we hope. I personally hope, simply because personally I see that as more buying opportunity, right? Like I would love to see it come down to that 15,000, 13,000 area, because this right here is nothing but a straight shot. Right? This is going to be one of these moments here where you're going to be like, oh, stomach drop, boom, boom, right down to that next level. So we'll see. We'll see. Ethereum's going to be pretty much the same thing as we're noticing here, but Ethereum put in a nice little rally here. But it couldn't, but I bring this up here. It could not get up to our 50 period moving average, whereas Bitcoin we did see. Now on this show, if you go back and you look at the merge, I did talk about us. I did a full 8-hour show on the merge, right? And I talked about, yeah, I was trading the merge, and as we were selling off, it was right here. You can actually go back and check out one of my things. But I'm sitting there on the show, and I'm talking, and you see me talking to the guys on Bankless, saying the market's going to drop. Like I'm telling you, like I'm noticing that they're putting in their sell markets. Now I thought it was going to drop instantly. Of course, they didn't do that. They dropped it the next day. And I said, guys, we're coming back down to that 13, like 36 area. Absolutely. And we were sitting at that 1900 area here. And so as I was talking to them, I was like, guys, excuse me, not 19. We were at the 1700 mark area, and we came into the 1300, right in this level here. And so the fact is that we couldn't even touch that 50 period moving average here. Okay. Indicates to me that we should see another sell off here. Again, we have this big, huge push up of volume, right? But again, it's more seller volume than buyer volume when you actually go into the idea. We did bounce off on this 50 period moving average, but on the daily, we really couldn't put any new higher highs. And we put lower lows here. And so to me, I see Ethereum, again, coming back down to that 2,800 mark, or not 2,800, excuse me, 1,100, 1,200 mark as we're looking at here, simply because this is really more, it's more like 1,100 to the 11 to the 1060 area here. This is really because we've already traded through this area here. I've talked about how it would take us probably a month to get through the monthly moving average here. But after this,
I like I said with Bitcoin, I see where you're going with ETH here. However, I think the markets, they're usually smarter than you and I as individuals, and I think they've priced in all of this bad news and the lousy markets coming in. Unless something drastic, is outside of expectations, like China's economy folds, or the Fed raises 2%, or the new prime minister in the UK screws it up even more than the last one. I don't see any major downsides, because I think the market's mostly priced it in for the next at least 1 to 2 months for heavy losses. It still could be to the downside, like I said, down to the 18,000, high 17, something like that. In Bitcoin, certainly down to 1,200, 1,300 in ETH, but really lower than that. I think the big guys have pulled their money out, moved it around. They're sitting on cash and wanting to know where to put it. And I'm hoping that
you're right.
The cash. I'm hoping the cash comes to support crypto and to other projects that will end up using crypto as a utility.
I can only hope that, but I don't see it. The only reason why I say that is literally because we traded through these zones and we didn't put a higher high. And I know that seems so simplistic, but when it comes down to trading, so many people try to make it too complicated, and we're not seeing volume step in as we're rallying. That's my biggest thing, is that we're not seeing volume step in. We're actually seeing more sell off coming in as we're coming down. Right. So that's them establishing really, short positions. That's them screaming to me, right? And we can't put in higher highs or put in lower lows here. So from a technical standpoint, and you can see it. You can go back and check all my videos. They're on YouTube as well as Twitter. I've called it. It's there. It's in black and white. So I hope you're right. My heart is that I hope you're right. I do. But the narrative, the book in which it is writing to me, the love letter it is writing to me, is that it's depressed and it wants to see lower levels. So we'll see. I hope you're right. Fingers crossed. I don't want to see people lose more money, but to me, from a trading standpoint, at least as my own analysis, is that yeah, I see it's coming back down to these levels, unless there is somebody who does step in and we start to see some major buys coming in. But even here, like, look at this rally. Like, we see it, but we see no real buyers stepping in.
What's your chart? I can see it. Is it a daily?
Yeah, it's a daily. Yeah, it's the daily chart. So yeah, and when we look at that monthly chart and weekly chart, man, it's still not. Look, we're just seeing it falter here. Look, this is the weekly, and then if we look at that,
yeah, that's a good point there. That volume is
it's steady. Steady.
Go back a month or two, or drag it back a few months, and has the volume been that low?
Yeah, so check us out. So on the rally up here, as we see, so this is the monthly chart, right? As we come in for the rally, when we had some major sell-offs, you can see here that the volume here was about this level here, right? So you would think at these levels right here, as we're playing, bouncing off, then you would see an accumulation of buyers. But the reality is it's the opposite of that. We're seeing actually an accumulation of sellers every time we hit higher levels. So you can see here the last, like an increase of sellers as the drop. Then in additionally to that, as we were rallying, we didn't see a lot of real buyers stepping. If I was going to see real buyers, I would want to see this volume up to here. I want to see double, right?
Yeah.
Like that. We didn't. And then we saw, once we came up and hit the 8-period moving average on the monthly, look, it couldn't even get up to it. And now it's just been following. If you look at that weekly, we've been playing off of that 20-period moving average coming through. So for me, I want to see more volume, and I'm not. And so I hope you're right. Like, fingers crossed, toes crossed. I even got my hair crossed, man. But the reality is this. I'm not seeing it. Like, I'm not seeing it. And that's where my heart is like, man, right? But sometimes it's the way it rolls, and you got to keep moving with it, and understand. If I start to see volume come in November and we see a Christmas rally, okay, and that Christmas rally might bring in the FOMO, because we got a lot of Jeets, right? And they make a lot of money in BSC, and they go in and they're looking. So all of a sudden they start to realize, we could cause a FOMO. The only thing that will stop it is institutions coming in and saying, we're going to take the other side. Right. And I do see that. I do see where
they do like to do things like clean out the shorts. They also want they see it building and want to take all the longs out too and drive the price down. There's no doubt there's a lot of market manipulation going on in this because of its small size. What many people forget with crypto, and I have this conversation in my outreach efforts with politicians and influencers of policy and things like that, is that the crypto gets more media attention than its industry should because of its financial size. And when you look at the $1 trillion that the crypto industry is worth, that's only the value of real estate of the island of Manhattan. That's it. And there's a lot more real estate in the world. And so all of this attention is being focused on a very small thing right now, because we're all either we're all hoping or we all know it's going to be a big thing and get much larger. Absolutely. But the small amount of $1 trillion isn't that much in the markets nowadays. I mean, the $1 trillion is a ton of money. I'd love to have it, or at least a small part of it. But it's not a lot of money.
It's only 2% of the traditional markets of America. And it's literally it's 0.9%, 0.8% of the world's financial assets, right?
And there are people doing live shows reporting about it like this all the time. You, me, many others. And there's no live shows about the real estate market in Manhattan. There's not. There's no attention to it. People come and buy their buildings, whatever. They're not analyzing it week to week, trying to figure out where the growth is. Because there's a lot more attention being brought into this. And all attention, whether it's good or bad, ultimately is good, because it brings more people in, and it causes people to do exactly, and this conversation I made in a circle for a reason, causes people to come in and FOMO in. And if they start seeing the market come in around Christmas, and things do get a little better, if Bitcoin's going up, it'll drag BNB up with it, it'll drag ETH up with it, drag everything else up with it. Then the FOMO will happen, and we'll finish the year strong in crypto. That is my hope.
It's a good hope.
Remember, strong in crypto does not necessarily mean up. It means just not down.
Yeah, good point.
If we just consolidate until Christmas, that's okay too.
Just hold this level. It's funny. I've talked on the show now a few times where I do dig off of BNB, simply because BNB is ran. It's a centralized, decentralized protocol in which they actually have really good setting up, money making schemes, right? Like they're a money what's the word? They're a money pot, right? And so Ethereum is something similar.
No doubt about that.
Yeah. Like everything here is money, right? Like literally money. They bring in cash. They, just created a $500 million fund to just buy and help struggling, protocols that potentially could be really big, right? So this is, they're a beast. They're a juggernaut, and CZ is not an idiot, right?
And he's got a lot of cash to back up his decisions.
Yeah. Like literally, we saw him literally close down BNB during the hack, and then reestablish a whole entire new push to push it back up, right? So that to me, and you only saw a 0.5% sell off. It only moved $10, right? So that's I remember if the other protocols had happened, you would have seen such a major sell-off, at least 25%. At least. I mean, I was literally ready, waiting for them to open up and to drop. And I was right there. I'm like, let's go, dude, come on. And I just said, bloop, and I barely any volume. And I was like, aw, it was so let down. But in the same sense, this shows the trust. It shows the strength that people have in BNB. So to me, when I'm looking at the chart here now, now I can truly say, with at least BNB, that the market it's priced in, right? They do price it. I would say for BNB, these are priced in. I can still play and capture inefficiencies on a day trading aspect, right? But from a long-term situation, if there's going to be a major coin, I think that might stick around, truly, right? And I'm talking Bitcoin or all the other ones. It's going to be BNB. They're structured in a way where I don't know if CZ was a genius and he was planning this, or if he just happened to luck into it and go, oh shoot, somebody.
I'm sure you have both. Almost every successful person has a little bit of luck behind them too.
Absolutely. So it's really interesting. But to point out here real quick, the BNB, we do have hardly any buyer wicks on the smaller time frames here. And so I do see it's coming back down and testing that 270, 260 area as we come back down, because it has to come back and test, because I think down in these levels, back in the 268, 270, you have buyers sitting here. And so I feel like this is where we are seeing it trend down into this level for this week. So you can see here we're putting lower highs and lower lows. In additionally to that, you can't see here, but if you go on the perpetual futures, you can actually see that we're playing off of that 8-period moving average.
Yeah.
Put it up here real quick. Where you at, BNB? What's going on? BNB. There we are. I'm huge on the 8-hour chart, simply because that 8-hour chart does give us a good indication. The markets move at 8-hour segments, right? we have the U.S. market that opens up, right? Then you have the Asian market, then the London market is what closes it, right? And so they're all in 8-hour segments. So it's important to look at that 8-hour chart. You can see here how we've been playing off of the 100 as well as the 89 moving average, and then also that 8-period moving average where it's starting to find support. My only indication is I think, well, like I said, come back down and test that 400 or the weekly 8 or the weekly 20, which is sitting right here. The only reason why I say that is I'm not seeing off of these levels here major volume step in, right? And so that's why my indication is that we'll probably see a decent sell-off from this level down into, and the reason why the other part is I don't have any buyer wicks here. Like typically I want to see buyer wicks whenever we see a big push up, something similar to something like this, right? Where it indicates to me with a ton of volume that we are going to go through and push up, right? And then we typically come in to the beginning of this area here and see a rally from there. Because we had this huge rally with no real volume wicks of buyers stepping in, to me indicates that they want to push it back down here and create another buyer wick down in this level here. So for me, when I look at BNB, that's really where I'm kind of looking to play the short. Now, again, if we find support on that 8-period moving average, which is that 8 and 20 junctional point to me is when we have a crossover with thin SMAs. It's a junctional point where price might come down into it and then see it bounce off of that level, i.e. right here, right? Price came down, we saw a rally, but not with a lot of conviction. I don't see this. If this came above, what just happened? Sometimes it just does this. I don't understand why. What does that mean? So let's see if we can pull that up here real quick. But while this is still pulling up, what are your thoughts on that? What I just said with BNB with down at that 270, 268 mark.
Well, it's well known that I am not into technical analysis. Looks at things. I look at the fundamentals of it because I haven't spent a lot of time on the TA of things. But my feel is that because Binance has a lot riding on pretty much everything right now, they do not want to see that price go down into the 250s and lower, just by itself, or at least because Bitcoin goes down a little bit and it's coupled a little bit. They want that to stay where it is and start to appreciate. You know, they're burning BNB. They're coming out with new projects that support it and projects that use BNB and all this type of stuff. They want to see it appreciate because they know it will drive an amazing source of wealth, not just for CZ and his insiders, but for their whole ecosystem. And the way I kind of see BNB work with all of the BSC chain contracts and all the smart contracts that are linked on it, it's not kind of a one-to-one thing. If BNB doubles, the stuff on BSC that's linked to it goes up × 4 or something. I don't know what the actual ratio is, but it's more than a one-to-one linear rate. And so I think they're very incentivized as a company, as an ecosystem, to keep the projects or keep the price of BNB from dropping outside of this range. After a long period of consolidation, long crypto isn't as long as watching Ford stock consolidate over 10 years. But after a period of consolidation, unknowns, and even it just kind of not doing much during terrible market news of high inflation, political instability, and everything, they're going to want to because if it doesn't boom after that, when that fixes itself, then people will think there's fundamental issues wrong with the company. So I think they're incentivized as a company to keep it here in this level, and they will do things that they can to support it by burning more, by insiders buying more, having Binance-controlled entities take large positions in BNB just to tie that stuff up and keep it from trading. Just like a major corporation does with its own stock. They'll invest in it, they'll market make their own stock, and they'll buy it. The difference is that when major corporations do it, they have to report it. In crypto, major corporations, Binance does it with their own coin. They don't have to report it, so we don't know what's going on. But thus, there's nothing for me to empirically look at and say that this is happening. It's just from looking at it as a market perspective and saying, what if I was running that company, I'd be, on my private jet in Ibiza right now. But
It's not my time.
right, exactly. But as a company, as an ecosystem, they want it to stay here, and they'll do what they can to kind of keep it in this range without it. If they have to artificially keep it in this range, just so it's primed for an extraordinary amount of growth up to $1,000, $2,000 in that next bull run. And if we see it go down to extremely low lows like 150, 120 again, something like that, I think the carnage in the rest of the ecosystem will be too much to handle, and it'll drag the whole BNB ecosystem down into a lot of bankruptcies will happen.
A lot of oblivion. So here's the thought, though. Okay, the restructuring of Ford was huge, right? And seeing things kind of happen. I remember when they hit, what was it, $1, right? At the lowest, right? And I remember in 2008, I was sitting there looking at going like, buy. Like I was thinking, like this is not gonna go anywhere. Like, listen, America would be the laughing stock. I mean, Ford was the juggernaut that propelled us, and so to sit there and let it just go belly up wasn't going to happen. So I remember saying, throw some money up in there, we'll see what happens, right? Like, right, and it was decent. But in the backside, when we talk about BNB is one of those ones that I think they have so much money on the side that I think if it was to come down to that 150 carnage, I truly see them buying their own coin. I can't see them not. I mean, that's where like it would behoove them to sit there. I mean, I think they have so much side money that they could come in and they don't need a report, right? They don't need to sit there and play by traditional financial rules. So they don't, I think, at that level, BNB, I think, what are they, $4 billion? I believe they're $4 billion, right? BNB, yeah. I think this is it. It's not 43 market cap. Is that correct? Yeah, 43 billion. 43 billion. I think they have maybe 4 or 5 billion on the side. They could sit there. If they get cut in half, that's 20 billion. They come in with 25% of the value, being able to push that market back up. And I think CZ would love to buy his coin at that level. Oh, dude, you're something happened.
Sorry, I was sniffling, so I had to mute myself. No, but I think you're correct on that. In that they would buy it, I believe, much earlier than 150 to support it. But they can do things like in a really good bull run, they can just slowly sell it off and make realized gains of 200%, 300%, 400%.
Easily.
Yeah, and that all that money is just like right in their pocket money. It's I'm sure it's in some contrived offshore area that it's not going to pay any tax on somewhere, and and that'll just be a massive fund, a multi-billion-dollar fund for them.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to saying we should learn from him.
So Gabriel is with Coin Launch Lounge, and he's one of the devs there, or one of the mods there. So he's
Hi, Gabriel.
Hello. So you're saying we should learn from them how to offshore our money?
No.
That is Pedro's financial advice. He said it.
No, absolutely not.
Change the disclaimer over there.
Yes.
IRS didn't have this.
No, I do not need the IRS coming knocking on my door. Absolutely not. But it's interesting though to sit there and see how, like you said perfectly, how they can really set things up. Another one I think is really interesting is XRP. Absolutely. Put all your money in that. That's going to go through the roof. What are your thoughts on XRP from a fundamental standpoint?
I think it's absolutely needed. The what they're doing for the banking industry. People forget that the Ripple company is not just a crypto project. It's a real financial company that is basically a bank without an actual bank in it. They are certified. I forget what it's called. It's the SOC certification process to act as a bank technologically, with privacy protocols, with data interchange and all that kind of stuff. It's very hard to get and very expensive. And they can basically revolutionize, like all of crypto is doing, the payment industry. They're started with the bank-to-bank international payments and all that, and then domestic bank-to-bank. The SWIFT system has always worked well, but man, it's old and creaky. And we all know that digital payments, not just crypto, I'll use the phrase digital payments, are changing the way everything works. And XRP is absolutely positioned to do that. And basically, if they're going to take on, the money transfer system, that means they can take on the payment system, and they could eat into Visa, MasterCard, and all that, no problem. And they're setting themselves up to do that.
So my question is this: with that, Swift has finally upgraded their system now, right? Now that they're on the verge of basically becoming a dinosaur, they now can do transfers within a day. It was a day or something like that, where they can do it instead of taking 3 days, right? Bing, ding,
right.
ding, ding. And my thought is this: is that if the world really starts to adopt blockchain, okay, I could see Swift, because they have the money, right? They have the ability to be able to go through and establish their own blockchain and make their system an ability to be able to even beat out a traditional blockchain that is going out there. And even I could even see them do what was that company? They basically just crapped all over what do you call Luna, right? They basically bought in at a really, and they just circled it, right? Ding, they shorted it, kept shorting, and just destroyed them, right? Their own thing. Swift has the ability. If there is a system that could destroy crypto, it would be Swift. It would be them as a juggernaut with the amount of money. Say, now you pissed us off, and you're taking our money, right? Like they come in and do a Al Capone status, right? Like like
baseball bat over the back of the head.
Yeah, like it's
Swift is.
So
but Swift is expensive,
Yes.
It is, Gabriel. It is. Yes. I got to tell you, I used to pay people by wire transfer. I haven't, except when having to move things from Canada to the U.S. in regular cash stuff. I haven't used the wire transfer system in a long time. I had some video work done, as a famous story I tell by, I just asked somebody in our project, hey, can you help me with this video work? I don't have time to do it. And they're like, yeah, just be equivalent of $500. I said, that's fine. And they just said, I said, how do you want to get paid? And they said, can you send me stellar lumens, XLM? And he said, it said, fine, no problem. I paid him within 2 seconds. Turns out the guy's in Croatia. So I made an international payment in a billionth of a second. I didn't know where he was, nor did I care where he was. Yes. I didn't care what jurisdiction he was in. I didn't care. I didn't need to file any paperwork. I didn't need to go to the bank and explain that I knew the guy or what my relationship was to him, or spend the $15 to $40, whatever it was, for the international wire. I just picked up my phone and I said, I need to pay that guy. Pressed the button, paid it. He turned it into euros within a few seconds, and done. And I was like, as soon as I did, that was probably a year ago or so. And as soon as I did that, I was like, oh, the payment system internationally is finished. And that's when I was like, ooh, what's this group XRP? And I was like, mm-hmm. As soon as this SEC, they just need to fire the right person in the SEC that's been staking his career on this or whatever it is. And they'll go to $2. That's just my hope, because I own some XRP. They'll go up really quickly, and then it'll grow, and then it'll go back to the normal things. How are they doing financially as a company, whether it grows more or not?
You say this from a fundamental standpoint. From a technical standpoint, I am a little bullish, just simply because if you look at that daily, right? Like let's look at it. We had a huge sell-off, right? So we saw sellers starting to step in and really holding the line of the 8-period moving average. So when I look at these from a monthly standpoint, right, we've actually been pushing through here, and I thought we were going to have a higher sell-off simply because we have a monthly SMA stepping in. So we did decent, but I thought we were coming back down to these levels here, which was that 31, 34 area, maybe even the 29. But the fact is that and I keep hitting hard on this, but look, this big push up, we're seeing buyer wake step in on these levels. So to me, as I keep looking at the market and seeing that we're finding support here, I'm having to switch my bias from a technical standpoint simply because we're putting in higher highs, we're putting in higher lows, and every time we do hit junctional points within the market, we're seeing buyer wake step in on a higher time frame. So
yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
No, I agree with that. The higher one of the reasons behind my thought process in this is that XRP is a an institutional killer. They're not revolutionizing the way that you and I work. Regular crypto has already done that, but they could revolutionize. There's the opportunity for them to revolutionize the bank-to-bank operations and country-to-country, or even direct, central bank to central bank transfers out, not using the banking system. And so there'll be a big institutional hedge in this, meaning that there's a lot of other companies out there in that industry that say, hey, we could get taken advantage of by XRP. Let's try and beat them, but let's hedge by buying a bunch of it. So if they're successful, we will also benefit, almost like buying a call in them or selling a put just to hedge against them doing their job well, which I expect that they will do once this whole SEC thing is finished.
Yeah, and the way they've been handling themselves within Washington, the way they've been handling themselves within the world viewing of that, they've done a classy job. I mean, they have handled things well. They've been professional. Nobody's lost it. Everybody in their whole entire ecosystem. If something was going to be brought up, right, as like a skeleton or something of that nature, would have already been brought up. And so that shows a lot of value in with what's going on. I personally think that the reason why they're still fighting here is because I don't think the institutions have got enough of their positions in. I don't think that, like you said, like they're going to be a juggernaut. They will revolutionize the institution buying and selling opportunities between what's going on within the markets, as well as just simple changing the SWIFT system at large, right? Just not that they're going to. I don't think the SWIFT system will ever go away. I don't. It's just they're not going to be a Kodak, right? They're not going to be Montgomery Wards. You know what I'm saying? I think we're about the same age. Remember Montgomery Wards, right?
Oh, I do. I'm in Chicago. There's the old headquarters are right here.
Yes. So it's one of those things that's definitely not going to be brought in. But I do think that they will have to adopt and get caught up with the rest of the world and be able to assist. And I don't think I think it would be smart for XRP to actually buy and bring in SWIFT with their, it'd be smart. It just makes wait, I just lost you again.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I think it would be smart for them, right, to actually get in. Like you said, buy them. Like get in and say, or, like people talk about the movie thing, the stock that was everybody was short, or GameStop, right? That situation, right, where everybody bought and the institutions were short. So they got caught up. I have somebody else coming from another. So sorry, I lost track there real quick. So one of the biggest things is that they went through, they got caught with their pants down, the institutions, right? So you know what the institutions have done now? Whenever they start to see and surge of volume that goes against them, they have a secondary system that goes through and puts call puts on a level if they're short. So if they ever get caught off guard again, and most people don't realize like call options are a 10-to-1 ratio. So when the market moves 1 point, they're making $10. Okay. So if they're short on a level and the market starts to rally up, ding, 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 there's another system in which they buy call options, which makes them 10 times the amount of money on the upside. Then when the sellers have basically gone through and lose momentum, then what they do is they sell off those call options, they go through, and they double down on their shorts. Hence, pushing pressure down. And the populace don't have an endless supply of money. So, like,
I know mine's very finite. It's
yeah.
a lot shorter than I planned on it being.
But the
It's
key
definitely not. Go ahead.
But the key is this: is that they're not going to be caught off guard anymore. Like that. Like those were.
Right.
Yeah.
But they do, as smart as Wall Street is, and as I say, as collectively, they're smarter than us individually. There's a whole bunch of parts of that do get lazy. Like they got lazy with the GameStop and AMC stocks and not covering their asses on it. And they used triple leveraged money and all this type of stuff. So when one went bad, they got really hammered. All those guys that were in charge of that got fired. And now new guys are up and they're covering their butts on that. So that doesn't happen. So they're working the options markets better. The only problem with that is that the options markets aren't as liquid as the primary spot markets. So they can't ever hedge as much as they want, because that the active, if you hedge that much, it'll move the market in the first place, and your hedge will be out of position. So and I've plucked around the crypto markets enough to watch the liquidity. They divide the out. There's the Robinhood liquidity, which is one thing. There's the Coinbase stuff. There's the Binance stuff. And that's the other big one for option. KuCoin, or I can't remember. But their liquidity is divided. They're not putting it all in one area. So there's no one easy place for somebody to go and put a multi-$100 million option bet on something, even if you have the money, because you'll move the market too much. If someone sees $100 million put come on, the market will assume that that's good. Somebody has some insider knowledge and move accordingly. So,
but
it is difficult.
I'll put it like this, though. I think they would hedge themselves, because ultimately, many times when they play these fundamental moves, right, like GameStop, it is a company that should be out of business. Now, they've changed a lot of their fundamentals aspects since the actual short and all the fiascos, right? But at that time, they were still doing what they were doing, and it was going. They were becoming antiquated because they were still selling consoles, and you would go in, and it was more of like the thought of, it's more nostalgic, right? Where you go and you buy consoles, and they really weren't making much money. So quarter upon quarter, they were losing. So if I was an institutional, I would definitely play that from an institutional level, from shorting them, right? Now, since then, and since with all that extra capital, they were able to change and go online and do a lot of new stuff, which is dope. The same idea is with AMC, right? Like, people weren't going to the movies unless it was a major blockbuster that really drew in a lot of people, like Endgame or something like that. Again, I didn't really go to the movies like I used to do when I was a kid, where I'd at least want to go at least once a week, right? And so I can now go and look at my 72-inch screen with my surround sound, right? And sit down with my family and not have to deal with like snotty little stuff, or what I'm saying? So there's this aspect of they were playing it smart. They weren't going against, they weren't trying to bully a company. They were being smart in how they were setting things up, because from a fundamental standpoint, these were becoming like the dodo bird, right? And they weren't switching their business model, nor could they, right? So, like, going the way of the dodo bird, they weren't evolving. So and they didn't have the money to do it. That was the other aspect, right? Like, it's like when a crypto project gets started, right? And they got all that money coming in, and they put it in stupid things. And the reality is they need to put it more to like advertising, but they no longer have money to put towards advertising because they ran through all their cash, right? So it's like, now you're dead in the water. That sucks, right? Man had a great idea. He made some progress.
I know that.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to be in the manufacturing business, and that's a consumer of capital, as they say. And they're like, all right, we developed the product. Everything is great. Oh, we've got no money to sell it. No.
Yeah. And really what you need great salesmen, right? And so the other thing I thought about is actually creating a business where people can actually sit down and go over and say, listen, I sell this for a discounted rate, but overall, I would want that person, that company, to almost give me an IOU, right? Or part of the company as I sell, right? And so if you put my name out there, that gives you credits, almost like carbon credits, right? That you can use and pull in, and almost has a residual type of income that you could use or trade between each other, right? So it's it's another form I've thought about of marketing capitalization. I don't know what to call it, right? It's just one of my thought processes that go through, like sweat equity type of thing, right?
Yeah.
But that's down the road, right? One of those things I've thought about. But jump back to XRP. XRP, I'm bullish on them. They're strong on things. They're definitely coming in and they're putting in higher highs. On the long term, we're seeing a consolidation period. The biggest thing is we have some higher time frame SMA stepping and get involved. We have that 200 period moving average still holding a resistant level, as well as the 50 period moving average on the monthly chart sitting right here. So these certain junctional points will be keeping it either in a consolidation period or maybe down to until we find higher time frame buyers. So that's really interesting to see. But like again, we are seeing bigger volume stepping in on the buy side with them. So really interesting to see. Solana, what are your thoughts on Solana and its view when it comes to this the cell phone and what they've been doing and all this stuff? Talk to me, Goose? Unless you want to go back.
I don't know what to tell you about Solana, because they I don't know what it is with Solana. They just can't get all the right press, and then something happens, their blockchain comes to a halt or something like that, and which obviously it happened to BNB recently too. So it's not unique to them.
Well,
but they've been doing that one step forward, two steps back thing lately. And thus they really haven't been on my radar as far as trading them. What I do know, what I'm worried about with Solana is that because they're really taking a long time to get from A to B, in crypto terms, not in major company lands, in crypto terms, that so many people are catching up, and we know the rate of innovation in crypto because of its lack of regulation and money being thrown at it. The new iterations come out so fast, is that their brand name is holding them up right now. Their leader is holding them up right now. But they really need to get things moving with all of their products related to their token, or not their token, their blockchain, their whole ecosystem, and get it going, because people are just going to take two steps right on by them the next time that they fumble, as they say.
A part of me almost feels as if, like, I like what they did with the whole entire H&T and what they've actually done there. Like, I think it's smart, with bringing in helium and being able to use their system, right, to be able to. I think that would bring in a lot of transactions. I do think, like, as helium really keeps pushing out their telecommunication business throughout the world, you're going to see a lot of transactions coming into Solana. And hence, if I can be able to, like, for example, their cell phone, right? And I've talked about this in the past, if I can go through and pay $2,000, i.e. $2,000 for a cell phone that works, right? And then it's mining me, because I spent $1,500 already on cell phones, right? Like, okay, I do, right? That's just it. If I can then now pull up a cash grab where now it's making money for me, I would be willing to buy a Solana phone, right? And then have my cell phone with them as like a burner phone type of thing, right? $1,500 burner phone, but it's one of those things. I feel like what they're doing with it's almost like, it reminds me of? It reminds me of Apple. It reminds me of Apple when Apple first got started. And they just kept messing. Like, Bill Gates screwed them over, right? Screwed over Steve Jobs. Then you have them come out with the whole entire changing of the color for the actual. It wasn't until they the changing of the color PC, which was good, but then they flopped it on the advertising, right? So
right,
they just kept fumbling, boom, boom, boom. But then they had that one, like that the savior of Apple was the iPhone, and that's what built the cult following.
Yep.
Right. And one thing about with crypto, there's a lot of cult followings.
No, never. There's no FOMO. There's no FOMO in crypto.
No, nothing. So if they can even just start running the ball, even if they fumble, but just keep running it and getting it somewhat close to that end zone, you'll see people, I think, just start to really step in. But they've really got to come through from that cell phone status. Like if they screw that up, just sit there and say we have a cell phone store in New York that doesn't. I'm like, oh, okay, that's hype, right? But if you can start selling those, even if it's 10, 20 a day, look, that to me just means that people are starting to use it, right? And then as that starts to accumulate, all of a sudden you get mass adoption from the Solana network, hence bringing in money in which they can finally really start pushing out their marketing system. So I don't know. Maybe I've thought about this a little too much. And they're not going to do it.
Yeah, well, there certainly are a lot of good projects using Solana, but when you reference Helium, Helium's basically betting when saying that we're going to use one blockchain over another. This is what spending a lot of time I spent 27 years in manufacturing businesses, in between stints in financial businesses. You have to plan for resiliency and plan for backups, and you have to plan if this supplier doesn't work, we can have the ability to go to this supplier. Maybe not 100%, but at least we don't go out of business. Yeah. When a company relies on one blockchain for their whole thing to work,
Hail Mary.
No bueno, bueno, as they say. And I don't like that. I don't like that because, and many people are having that issue. They're saying we're picking this blockchain or picking that blockchain, when really at this point, as there's now 8 bazillion blockchains, they should be saying, we're blockchain agnostic. These product, obviously, I'm speaking from a theoretical level, not a programming level. And they should be saying, all right, we're going to be able to use Solana, Cardano, and we're getting ready for the new Pulse chain launch too, and our products will run on all of those, just like Samsung runs on T-Mobile, AT&T, and whatever thing. And so I think they need to go down that route before they can really see it, because Solana has a validator problem. The validators go on strike for a week. Does Helium come to a halt? Does their cell phone stop working? Seems to be too much centralized power in one supplier. I mean, you think about all of these projects, protocols, and all of that. If you think about it in a simple supply chain equation that the rest of the world operates on, you have to identify weaknesses and plan for them. Weaknesses and plan for them. And relying on a single blockchain is that weakness here. And so they got to get over that, because we know Solana will come to a halt again.
Yeah, but I like their idea. Break things quick. I like that. I mean, I know it sounds horrible, but I think it's one of those things. Their ethos, right, is break things quick and figure out what's going to happen. I think I think they have not necessarily the best mentality in regards to that, but if they keep breaking things quicker, it just makes me. I just think that they're going to come out ahead quicker than everybody else, because they're at that mindset of over. You know what reminds me of? You know what this Hail Mary thought is? Remember Eli Manning, and when he threw that, there was somebody else. There was somebody. Do you remember that Super Bowl? When it was 2007.
Oh, now I gotta look it up.
2006. I think. Remember, and there was a recent one that was actually done at I forget the guy's name. It was Eli Manning, but there was another one who recently, back in 2015, I believe, do something similar to that, where there was down to the wire, and they're sitting there, and he launches it right, bam. I think it was 2007. I'm looking at you. Giants upset undefeated 2007 Patriots Super Bowl. Yeah, and he goes through, right, and then it was Aaron Rodgers. That's who it was. Aaron Rodgers who throws it, right, boom as well, something similar. But here's the thing: Hail Marys sometimes work.
They most certainly do. They most certainly do. That's why they practice them, and that's why they throw them, because they occasionally, low percentage, but they do work. As they say, someone always wins the lottery. Eventually someone wins the Mega Millions and Powerball, which reminds me I need to buy tickets for tonight's drawing. Tuesday's day trading will be a lot different. 10 projects are up 15 million%.
Right. I was
like, yeah, those Hail Marys do work. And in the financial world, when they work, they're the 1000x, the 10,000x. They're the hexes of the market,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's another one, right, to talk about.
About the investing, I saw the other day, and I'm not joking. I'm serious about this. The BSC, like Binance, is changing minds of people. I'm telling you, because the other day, this guy said that he's seeing this and that cryptocurrency as long-term investment, right? Long-term investment, and literally the next sentence, we will see tomorrow.
Oh, then he sold. You think he's going to sell tomorrow just because he's saying it's a long-term investment?
Yeah, it's like he said it's a long-term investment, and his next sentence was, "Let's see tomorrow."
What happens tomorrow?
I tell you,
what is going on with Hex?
Yes, yeah. I was just looking at them because I used to do 30 charts a day, and it would last for about 2 hours, right? I'd go through boom, 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 and people were saying, "Dude, it's way too much, bro. We don't have enough attention span to be able. You either need to make it funner or just do like 10, the top 10, right?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm literally giving you money. Like, I'm literally giving you money, and you're saying it's too much. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, I just can't
It would be too much for me. I'd be like, oh yeah, no, we got to talk more. It's too many lines. It's starting to look like turkeys.
Dude, yeah, but I mean, I had one guy. He literally made almost $70,000, $80,000 this year over the last few months, and he's been following me, right? So he goes, he writes it down, and I've, and he hits, and so it's dope, right? And so I said, listen, make sure you always have your stop. And my biggest thing was he wasn't trading with any stops, and I said, dude, what are you doing? Put your stops in. Stop being an idiot. Like that $50,000 you made as of that time will turn to 20,000. And then you'll hold on. It'll be an investment, right? Like, so, like, don't be an idiot. Like, put your stops in. I'm good enough to make sure that you can keep playing. The key is conserving capital, right? That's your key. So I sat there and the guy was playing. So I started hitting up Hex, and he was like, I was talking about how Hex hit this area right here. And I brought it up, and I was like, guys, I think it was here. It was this one right here. I apologize. Where we hit this level here. And so I was talking about this a little bit. And I'm saying, all right, guys, we're going to hit this. We'll probably continue down and see it come down into a lower areas here. And so I think this was the last day that I did cover Hex, right? Because people can handle the barrage of numbers and money that I was handling them. But
God forbid you say something wrong about Hex. Oh my God, the people will burn your house down.
Dude, this is legit. The thing is, I've actually reached out to those guys are a riot, especially the Hexicans, right? Like, or what are the clown guys? What are they called? They all dress up like clowns and they're nuts. But I put it like this though: they would be a riot to have here on the show. Right? Like, they would be the entertainment factor of like, what? Like, I'd be like, so instead of me saying, all right, so we should see the market come up and hit the 5.3 area, and then see ready for a big sell-off from that level. We should be able to then see it continue down into the XYZ level from 2 cent mark, right? So this is where you want to be covering short and make sure that you take your part of your profit at this level and this level and this level, right? And then, but they'd be like, dude, you're like too boring, bro. Have a beer, or so. But yeah, what is going on with Hex? The only problem, again, I say is I don't see buyer wicks. Give me, and the reason why I say buyer, and we see a little bit buyer wick here. The buyer wicks means that the buyers have the ability to fight off the sellers. That's a war, right? And when I see sellers step in and then see buyers push it back up, that means there's true strength in that area. Right? And so I want to see more buyer wicks. Now, we did see buyer wicks down in these levels here, right? So that's a good indication. We did bounce off of this area here as well. So, but I want to see, as we start to rally back up, I want to see buyer wicks step in, right? So this point, the 4 cent 415 area to that 413 area, 4 area here. This will be an indication to let us know whether they're going to be able to hold this.
I think from the fundamental point of view, I believe that there are a lot of hexagons that pulled a lot of money out of Hex a while ago, anticipating the Pulse thing, and Pulse is taking longer. Nobody knows when that's going to launch and all that. So, like my example about during the bear market, the people pull their money out, but they end up putting it somewhere, and so the power of the call of the sirens of Hex for the hexagons, they put their money back into Hex if they're not going to have it available to put into Pulse, and I think that's gone through a few cycles where people are like, oh my God, there's been a tweet or two from Richard Hart Pulse must be around the corner. Let's sell off our Hex and get ready to invest in Pulse, and then you don't hear anything of them again, and they're sitting on their pile of ETH or whatever the underlying is. Yeah, it's ETH or whatever they're using. And then they're like, oh, well, I got this cash. I could invest it in, some new project, or I could just invest it back in Hex. And so I think we're going through waves of that because there's nothing new in Hexland. There's no new staking. There's no higher rate of return. There's no new news for it other than it's still awesomely up higher than when it launched. It's down tremendously off its highs, like most major projects in DeFi land, or I shouldn't say Hex isn't completely DeFi, but it's down a lot, huge, but there's still a lot of money in it. The volume is big still. They still every day there's tons of buys and sells, and there's as they say, Richard Hart's not getting poorer every day because of it. He's getting richer, and this fanatical following continues, which is fine. It's fine. It's fine because as long as that internal FOMO happens, Hex will do well. And from the fundamental point of view, you can give me the technical point of view. From the fundamental point of view, I think people are following their anticipation of when the blockchain and all that's going to launch. But I think, and I'll give you my fundamental opinion on that launch too. I think it could possibly be the biggest JEET in the history of crypto. Could it? And the only reason why I say if is because I don't fully understand. I'll admit I don't fully understand how the whole sacrifice thing worked at the beginning and how it plays out into value. Because if after it launches and there's value and there's all those people that sacrifice and they see any gain at all, they're so used to saying, I need to hedge my bet, and I just say I made 2x or 3x, they're going to take 1.5x out. And there's going to be, they had 1 million people sacrifice or something like that. Yeah. Something like $10 billion or something crazy. I don't even know the numbers. It's not fathomable for a DeFi project. And so knowing that and knowing how the market's been and knowing the uncertainties in the market, I'm just saying it's just going to be when Hygeet, when Hygeet,
Can we short it?
That's exactly. I don't know if you can, since it's not launched. I don't know if you could short it. I mean, you can short X. I'm sure.
I saw enough big launches to know this is gonna to dump. Like I saw, it was 1,000, 6,000 BNBs, and it was massive dump, like massive dump. 2,000 BNBs.
We're talking cheese and eggs all day long. Yeah. Massive.
Only JEETs. Like if they don't see any movement, they dump. That's it. So knowing this, I just want to guys, let's record the launch of Pulse Chain. This will
here's the thing. If we do that,
the biggest
I don't want to deal with the hexagons. Like, if we were to go viral, do you understand the death threats? I actually might have somebody come knocking on my property.
You live in
like these are the nutsness of it, dude. Like, I don't
There's people that have built entire influencer lives around their original investment in Hex. Yes. And they can only allowed to say good things. It's like the people who said bad things about SafeMoon. It's like the internet wanted to come and erase them from the face of the planet. You will never say anything bad about SafeMoon. Now all everyone does is badmouth SafeMoon, but Hex is the same way. And for those Hexicans that might listen to this, I am not one of you because I missed the vote on it and I didn't get into it. And to be honest, I don't really understand your project. Obviously, I understand staking and all that. So I missed out on it. So don't think I'm speaking badly of you. Just think I'm speaking without proper knowledge. That's my get out of jail clause for that.
I put it like this. I'm looking at the charts, right? And for me personally, I look at them and I go, look, you guys didn't put any buyer wicks down there. I see, like, so I want to see it put buyer wicks down at the bottom, like I saw. And then I want to see him kind of rally, put a buyer, come back down, buyer wick, push back up on the initial part of the move. That's the important part, right? It's that we see that because that means that there's a defense of that area, which means when price comes back down, because it always retraces. If anybody knows how to fix what just happened to my chart here, please let me know. I don't even understand. I was sitting there talking about BNB, and now this thing just wants to be a pain in my booty. I don't even understand why.
I think it's you have 69 tabs open.
No, you
listen. Don't try to confuse me with logic. I don't like it. Okay.
I think you changed the chart. This is PancakeSwap, and you changed it from the trading view.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like somehow, I'll have to figure it out down the road. So I'll pull up trading view here real quick. That was actually Pancake. So bring it up. I want to bring up XLM because we actually had Mako want to talk about XLM too in the comment section. So XLM is similar.
Yeah. I think we just found a leverage to fame. Just fat hex. I mean pulse chain now.
So again,
you will go viral
beyond
your comprehension.
He's a guest. I am just looking at Hex as look. It's another chart to me. It's not my baby. I date it. I dump it. Have a good day. Nothing against y'all. Many blessings. Now, but with Gabriel's statement, though, let's jump back into XLM because Mako was wanting to talk about certain things. Now, and this is key. This is kind of saddens me about Stellar. As XLM comes through, we see it starting to rally, right? Put in some areas here with good volume. Like that, I remember sitting there looking at this going, oh, wow, it's got some good volume. Regardless of the sellers that stepped in, they did produce a decent amount of volume as we were pushing up, okay? So to me, when I see something like that, right, that's a huge indication saying that people are buying this. And it's real. It's a real volume. So to sit there and see them kind of falter at this point, was this just simply institutions putting in and establishing their position here, right? And then seeing it sell off, right? And on the sell-off, I'd want to see more buyers at this point. But we keep having these exhaustion candles, whether we're playing off or we're having these lower highs now stepping in. So for me, it's one of those things that I feel like it works from a fundamental, or not a fundamental standpoint, but from a technical standpoint, that I would want to wait. I want to wait personally for us to really push through some of these levels here, because as we keep moving up, these 400 period moving average on that weekly, we keep tapping that. Like I didn't put that in. I apologize. Let me put that in, guys. Where is it at? Right here, as we can sit here and see this, that it's playing off that 400 period moving average. But as we're coming down into these levels, we're seeing buyer weight step in, which hints to me that this is real support, right? Like this is coming to real support. So I want to see it put in a new higher high. Hence, I will definitely be much more bullish on XRP, or not XRP, but XLM in regards to its movement. But it is showing me the correct movements here, that we are putting in buyer wicks at these lower levels. And on top of that, it is showing some support. So that's where I was at. I did place this movement here at this zone here. So it did, I just want to point, it did come and hit my zone here at the 10 cent mark. We've been seeing it kind of go sideways here at this level, but the biggest thing is this: is as we keep moving forward, we've got to close above that 400 period moving average, which is really the daily 200 period moving average as we're playing here. So I just want to give you guys analysis on that. What are your thoughts on it from a fundamental standpoint? Staking, striking. Sorry.
I've always liked XLM. I like them because it was one of the first cryptocurrencies, like the example I gave earlier about paying someone. They said, "Why don't you pay me an XLM?" I'm like, "All right, which one of the many things is XL this, XL that? But what's?" And I was like, and it, was basically instant, the payment and then the transfer of it and the ease of use. And it was one of the early, it was adopted earlier on a number of exchanges, so it was easy for people to convert to fiat quickly and things like that. As far as how their whole the Stellar ecosystems and where ecosystem is and where the lumens fit into all that, I haven't been tracking that because I've been using it primarily as a payment service, and that's been going pretty well for me. And like I said, because a guy in Croatia, I forget if it's Croatia or Slovenia or whatever, somewhere over there, and it turned me onto it, and so I've tracked it. I bought some a while ago, and I got out of it somewhere like around 127, something like that. But I only bought it at 115 or something like that. Yeah, well, it didn't make a fortune. And so as to where their whole project is going, like, I understand that I understand how XRP works and where they're going with it and the building blocks of it. I haven't gotten to that point where I understand Stellar yet, other than just using it for an easy payment
Transaction.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a huge for simple transactions, just like paying people. I think if eventually that will be commoditized, and so it'll be a race to the lowest cost and the lowest gas fee for that. So I don't think there's a future in making a ton of money unless you monopolize, unless you buy everybody. But for now, I like it. I don't want. To be honest, when I watched it sell off from 120 down to 10 cents, I didn't understand why. I didn't. Not from a technicals point of view, because like I said, I speak more in fundamentals, and I don't know why everyone just dumped out of it. It wasn't like any bad news, like, oh my God, the president of Stellar got arrested for pornography or whatever. Whatever.
He doesn't mess in. He's not a pedo, right? Like, he's not.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see anything like that. I just saw a sell off. So I thought, well, maybe just some long-term investors said, all right, I need to take some money out of this to diversify or something like that. But there wasn't a good indicator for me on why it was going down, other than the market in general, and larger entities basket trading. So if one goes down, they all go down. That type of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I from my I looked at it simply because Bitcoin was selling off, and we're seeing a sell-off with it. I mean, they're like the S&P 500 and how it's moving.
Right, and here, even on Stellar's website here behind me, they're talking about how to use Stellar to create central bank digital coins, which everybody is saying. XRP is saying we can do that. Now XLM is saying that. People are saying, well, they should just go right to Bitcoin and these types of things. But that's there's 5,000 projects competing for essentially, the 10 most important banks or the 20 most important central banks in the world, and not everyone's going to get all that kind of stuff.
I think you're right. Like, when
betting your company on that's a bad plan.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I probably should start going to people's
stop sharing screen. Yeah.
I was trying to have your screen kind of populate real quick. I want to share what you were showing.
If I may,
Yes.
as I started to think about it, the push chain, the top guy that sacrificed, unless it was Hart himself, he sacrificed, if I remember correctly, 900 million, something like $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't even need X. He needs 1.1x, basically. because 10% for him is $100 million. He does, he doesn't need to wait for 2x.
Right.
And at scale, for you, if you invest $100, it's nothing, right? $10. But for him, it's $100 million.
It's a new 100-meter yacht.
Exactly.
It's
New type of jittery.
We call it the Gulfstream Jeep. I need a new Gulfstream Jeep.
Niagara Jeep. I'm telling you, we have to record this live.
If Yellen was to truly understand the manipulation within crypto, she would stop running after what do you call it? The pegged coins to the dollar. I don't know why I'm forgetting.
Stable coins.
She would stop going after the stable coins and start going after the real jittery that's going on. Because the reality is that it really is that simple. Like when these massive guys who are under really no scrutiny can sit there and play this type of stuff, like this is only going to go on for only so long, right? Like just for only so long. So it's just interesting to sit there and see
about manipulation. I today was doing betting for like at least 5 hours, right? So I saw live the Bitcoin price action and the BNB price action because I had two charts open. And I'm telling you now, normally it's BNB following the Bitcoin, right? But today, for the first time from March when I was looking at BNB, for the first time I saw BNB dropping 30 cents, if I 50 or 40 cents before Bitcoin dropped.
Really? That's interesting.
It was on 1 week throughout 5 hours at least, but I saw it live. If I would have a recording, I would give it to you. First time I saw BNB dropping, then Bitcoin dropped. It was on 1 week.
So you're basically, so what he's referring to, and this is important, is a dominant status.
Because normally Bitcoin is moving the BNB chart, right?
Yep.
And this would seem like someone knew that Bitcoin will dump. And it dumped like $100 or something like that. Before the big red week on Bitcoin, we had big red week on BNB. Well, at 5-minute chart, right? No.
I'll be right back.
So I want to point this out because this is a big enough deal to where to point out, because the act is that the BNB can actually push around, and we talked about this right last week, that if we'll start to see a push in the market where we will see either BNB or Ethereum step in and become the dominant coin. That when they go down, the rest of crypto goes down, or when they go up, the rest.
But that will be later, I think, right?
But the key is to understand that as it's happened, you need to pay attention to the small subtleties of those, right? That's a major turning and junctional point.
Oh, I'm telling you, I today was doing this for at least 5 hours on 5-minute charts. So I saw it live, basically, right? Because I was doing betting all day. And that was the only 1 week that go on BNB that went down before Bitcoin. Normally BNB is following the Bitcoin. It's more stable, but it's following, right? But this one, I'm telling you, this one was something different. Like someone either knew or were using the same bots for trading BNB and Bitcoin.
It could also be more of like not necessarily. So you're looking at it from more of a trading standpoint, right? But I'm looking at it for like institutions, like people are not going to be able to move BNB.
Oh yeah. I'm telling.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously,
So,
you don't have enough money to move
Yeah.
the price, right?
yeah,
I'm not
that's
talking about money. Yeah.
that's institutional.
Like singular people, unless it's Richard Hart or something. The
But
$1 billion.
But here's the thing, even then, like the skill set that you need for that isn't like those trading people who have that type of money, right, in crypto that are just whales, right? They're not looking to trade, back and forth of the indices, right, or the markets, right? So it's those, not to say that they're not powerful, right? Like if they come in with $5 billion, $8, $10 billion, what they put down on Bitcoin, right? That's going to change the market. But you don't see them funneling money in and out, right? Where it's doing this, right? So the only times that you do see something like that is institutional money, like Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Bridgewater does. I think Bridgewater does have a trading system, but their system isn't necessarily. I think it's more fundamental. But these are major trading institutions that go through and move the market like this. So it's really interesting that they are using BNB as one of those things to actually establish and move the markets at large. So that's really interesting as we move forward. And I did comment on that last week, how we were watching BNB start to actually move the market at large, but I didn't watch it close enough to watch it really move it. I did see that as it started to move down, we did see Bitcoin start to move down, and then start to play
Your
around.
microphone is a little bit.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Oh, now it's way better.
All right, perfect. So it's just one of those things I think is really interesting. I would love to hear Striking's thought on that as well, but that's a good observation, Gabriel. It's actually really good. So I'll wait for him to come back to talk about that. But
I was using your moving averages,
Yes.
820 and 89, because
You know what? I had just a quick biological break there, and so I wasn't listening to you.
Oh,
sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
He started sweating after hearing, $100 million at 10%.
He's like, what? I got to call a friend up. No, I want to say this up because I was bringing up the idea that for a market to really start to take over, like Gabriel was talking about, how BNB has started to push the market down, where it's actually now leading among the other, right?
Yeah, I think not yet. It was only 1 week in 5 to 6 hours, like 1 week, one. The rest was following. That's why I think, like either someone sold off so big amount of BNB or knew before Bitcoin will drop that he sold.
I think what it is simply, I think the dominance aspect, where I think, like I've talked about this a few times, where BNB, I think because it is a better ran ecosystem, and even though it's not decentralized fully like Bitcoin, as a good leader, and I think institutions get that.
About the decentralization, that was actually good because if it wouldn't be centralized as it is right now, someone could steal basically $600 million in BNB and sell it, right, on everyone. Yeah. Because it was centralized, they stopped it, and someone only sold like 100 million, something like that.
Yeah.
Right. So that part was actually good about it, because the decentralization is good if people that are doing this blockchain know what they are doing, right?
Yeah. If the protocol that's decentralized has safety mechanisms,
securities, right?
Yeah, security systems that govern itself on an efficient level. But the problem is that we all know that you always have these hackers, and they're always looking for inefficiencies, right? And they're gonna find them. They will exploit them to the extreme, i.e.,
for $100 million, man, you can sit all day and look for code, right?
That's true.
All day.
That's good monthly income, right? You can do it for a month or two.
Yeah, this is small. So what are your thoughts on that, Striking?
Just quickly while we were talking, I'm doing some behind the scenes stuff here, fixing something. But to Gabriel's point of view, when it's for $100 million, you can wait a long time and you can put a lot of effort. You can sit there all day, and
You can
like
do it 20 years. Actually.
yeah, exactly.
People never see this kind of money. Like never. It's like you would take cities, entire cities of people, and combined people, average people would not even have this kind of money together. So, you know,
Right. There's
this,
plenty of countries that don't have,
but
that much liquid money. You know, there's the.
Exactly. So if someone know his stuff, he will do it. There is no other option. So you have to protect.
I think you're right. From an aspect of it, if like you said, I'll spend 20 years to create the biggest heists in the world, right? Like I'll figure that out. If I'm a third world hacker, right? I can get 5. I think what was that? There was a TV show. What was it? Mr. Robot. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Where
iRobot or Mr. Robot or.
Yeah, I think it was Mr. Robot. I'm not 100% sure. It could be iRobot was the one with Will Smith, and it was the robots. Mr. Robot was the hacking group. I think it was on, is it Fox who came out with it? I don't know. You can find it on Netflix though.
This is serious, right? Serious or a movie?
It's a movie. It's actually a TV show. And what they did is they hacked the whole entire financial market completely, right? And turned everything to zero. Meaning if you had debt, you're at zero. If you had student loans, you're at zero, right? And they hacked it. And it was simply just to start everything over. So what happened was the U.S. or the financial governments went through. It's funny, it should be called financial governments, right? I.e. Central banks. But that they went through and they said, all right, well, we're going to go back 10 or X, Y, and whatever your highest debt ratio was, we're going to call you there because that's our last, information. So they leaped on all this amount of money and vilified the people who were trying to help out society, right? And it's kind of a thing that I don't know. Like hackers, they can be dangerous, man. Like I don't know. I don't know. My mind just went that way. I don't even know why I went there. I just left field. Whatever. I don't even know where I was going with that. Anyways.
I'm thinking how to short it all,
and actually make it happen. If you could figure out what,
I will let you know. Yeah.
But I mean, these are so tight. These are so tight.
Just send me the small portion of the 100 million.
If you can short everything, get everything to go down, dude. That is really the baby to get down to. But I mean, the amount of ability that you actually have to have for that, it would have to be insane. Like it just have to be absolutely insane. Real quick question. So let me go over here real quick with the analysis on. Oh, actually, I never did analysis on Solana. Real quick. Let me jump at this real quick. So the market here, as we can see, we're continuing the sell-off on the week. We are still continuing down. We did put in some buyer wigs out on that weekly chart as we're moving down. So it's important to acknowledge that as you see here. It is following that weekly 8 as well as the daily 20 period moving average as we're continuing. This is the low of this level here. So if we do come back down to this level, do expect to see as a major wig come in at this level. But I don't see us really seeing much of a pullback up, just because it did put in some lower highs and lower lows. And at these levels, they're absorbing a lot of the buyers at these levels. So that's why we're kind of coming up here and now we're selling off. So I do believe that we're going to sell through Solana here and probably see another $18 mark as we continue down. Be ready for a sell-off and then a retracement back and the continued down with the leg. So something that's similar to this right here. Boom, 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 drop, right? You should see that type of setup probably right in this level here. Jumping into Dot. Dot is a unique, I think, like that's another one that they had really good protocol. They had the ability to be able to do transactions quickly, and also another protocol that they did help out Ukraine quite a bit with people sending money with them. So as I said, they had to sell off, and now they're coming back and waiting for the retracement. You can see here that the retracement is at the level of previous demand or previous support becomes new resistant level. So at that same side, as I'm seeing the 8-period moving average now continuing down, be ready for a sell-off at these levels as we continue down here on Dot. Like I said, I'm waiting for that 489 mark area here to that 429 area. What are your thoughts from a fundamental standpoint on Dot, Polka Dot?
Personally, I am no fan of Dot. First of all, they got a crazy name and brand name. I realize it's digital assets. There's that type of stuff. And when I first heard about it, I'm like, the Dot. What's the Department of Transportation got in this? And then I was like, Polka Dot. Why is someone named Polka Dot? And then they're another one that was an early adopter and that was out there first and got a lot of traction because of it. But I think again, they're a project that's just moving too slowly, and people are catching up too quickly, and they're not iterating fast enough and that type of stuff. And so they've fallen off of my watch because of that. And that's not to say they don't get great news. They pump like crazy when there's any bit of good news. They're expanding. They're over here. They're here. They're here. They're that type of stuff. And so as I say, that there's nothing wrong with Dot. There's no boogeyman on the side that there is like with the SEC and XRP. It's just, I just think they're one of many now. It's like, until there's some consolidation with the big groups that want to be players like them, I think they'll just be one of the other groups, and the people that unless they can really get some income in their project and put that into their token into their coin, to their invest in their ecosystem, which generates more transactions and more all this type of stuff. I mean, and I don't mean just like, well, they could see a 10x in their transaction volume. They need 1,000x in their transaction volume.
Yeah,
I mean, they need it needs to say we're converting everyone's toilet flushing habit. And so the entire population of the world will use us 5 times a day. And then these types of kind of groups that have fallen into the kind of the medium level blockchain providers will see huge breakouts. That doesn't mean they won't grow. It could, the whole project could go up. It could 5x just naturally as the market comes into the bull run and that type of stuff. But other than that, it just gives me the meh. The apathy award of the week. It's not to mean they're not trying. They're not good. They'll ultimately they are successful and they'll be more successful. But in order to do for me to do it from a fundamental level and think about it, other than just following the traders, and where people like you come up with the technical analysis of it and show where they are in relation to their historical prices. For me, it's just one of many.
It's nothing too exciting. What are your thoughts, Gabriel, on Dot?
I have no idea because I didn't look into the company, what they are actually making. I heard the name Polkadot. I know that you can get like 50 zloty, so it's $10 in Polkadot when you fulfill the Revolut like training. So they will give you this. I didn't do it, and good because it's dumping. So now I would get more Polkadot. But I don't know what they are doing as a company, so I cannot tell you. If they will gonna moon or not.
It's interesting. It's really interesting to see if they do start to move. Where at what price point? where the institutions do look at this and go, is this really? And I mean, and from like you said, from the fundamental analysis perspective, they're just like everybody else, right? So is it going to be that Ford's, $4 or $5 mark, or is it going to be that $2, $1 mark, right? Where they step in and they go, okay, this is so undervalued, kind of like how Ford was, right? Where Ford was, it's just another thing, but they're now iconic, right? The fact is that many Ukrainians have dot in their wallet, right? They can go through, and so there's that aspect of them being able to be the system that did help out Ukrainians.
The first Ford wasn't like just another car. Man, this one, it was built like a tank. I saw a video. It was riding across the field, like tanks, like jumping all over and place and just going straight ahead. Doesn't matter what is there a road or not. I tell you, this was working car.
It's tough. That's actually, that was in. You mean Ford?
Yeah, the first Ford.
Oh, the first Ford. Yeah. Yep. It was tough.
About it, I'm telling you, it was jumping on the field like a tank. You would see now. If you would do something like this with today's car, you would just, you could right away after one of these go it away, to the trash.
Anyone else notice we've had a nice BNB pump since we've been on the air, or Bitcoin pump, I should say?
Yes, right here we've seen a rally actually off of that 8-period moving average on the daily. It found support down in our area here where established orders.
It's because we're out here promoting crypto, and all of this, our massive audience here, FOMOing into the market. Come on, Pedro, this is marketing here.
Yes, you're right, dude. That is the ability that we have here, is being able to generate the masses at large.
Our 5 viewers have caused the entire Bitcoin market to move by investing based on our optimism.
We have 6.
6. Well, one is me, so it doesn't count.
5. Either or.
That depends how much money you have, right? We can have 5 and move the entire market.
This is true. One of my friends is Bill Gates. Another one is Warren Buffett, and so they're just kind of. And the other one is Elon Musk. So, hey, let's call him up. Hey, can you move BNB for me?
Let's get those YouTube hashtags out there so it picks it up on the algorithm. Mr. Beast, BitBoy, Bitcoin, Solana.
Actually, I never even thought about that. But
we moved the price of Bitcoin by our stream.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We moved the price of Bitcoin by
200 points. It was at 19,100. Now it's at 19,300 or something.
Yes. It's interesting to actually talk about this. But what are your guys' thoughts on BitBoy's rant about Bankman? And do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I don't. I just watched BitBoy rant about something, but I don't remember which one it was.
So it's about the new law that's actually coming out. It's basically going to crush DeFi, right? It's going to make people have to come out, dox themselves. There's a bunch of other stuff you can actually go online.
I did. I did see it in one of my shows a while ago. One of the things I complained about is, as I call them, old white people making the rules, and the United States Congress is full of old white people, and
yes,
and I use the term white people, but the Congress is much more diverse now, and there's plenty of the older people of all different types of colors in Congress that they just don't understand crypto. They don't understand the problems that we're self-solving. They don't understand the speed at which iteration happens, and there's an internal push from the people they hear from, and that's the other agencies of the U.S. government. The other agencies of the U.S. government want to make their jobs easier. They want to push new policies, and they want to be able to provide better data. So they naturally, not because some evil government controlling thing, they just naturally want to do their job better. And by having everything fully traceable and every person, fully public with everything, makes government agencies' jobs easier to do. They can track everything. They can look up stuff. They don't have to go through law enforcement. They can just figure stuff out easy. So they talk to these old white people on a daily basis through the internal government lobbying, through subcommittee testimony, this type of stuff. And they hear it from them. Oh, and we see this news report that billions were lost in crypto and we got to protect the people. So we need rules and everyone should be public. And there are a myriad of great reasons why everything should not be public. There's plenty of reasons for it. And there's nothing to do with being nefarious intentions. There's plenty of reasons things need to be private. And I can't stress enough how the top levels of the U.S. government and the old people in charge that have been there the longest, they hear the policy desires daily from internal parts of the U.S. government just trying to do their job. And they don't hear it enough from people like us saying, wait a minute. Now, there are some, there's the whole blockchain caucus in the U.S. Congress that does advocate for us and our positions. But they're mostly younger people that have no power. They're not in the main committee assignments. They're not in Ways and Means. They're not in I forget the one that regulates the SEC and the financial markets. And so they have junior positions, so they don't get anywhere with it, and they don't get they don't get their words heard. And so generally that comes out, and they say, "Oh, we got to protect the people." I had to explain to someone once. I said, "Look, all of the fraud." In my example earlier of talking about the size of crypto versus the Manhattan real estate, all of the fraud in crypto, all of it, is only one day of Visa MasterCard fraud.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And there's no one in Congress going, oh my God, we got to save Visa and save MasterCard and save everyone that's using their credit cards. All they did was they said, no, if you want to use your credit cards in the US, the people can't be subject to the fraud. The companies have to assume the fraud. And then we pay for it through higher rates. If only thing they did was just say, if you want to operate crypto in the United States and maybe in the G7, G20 countries, the companies have to come up with some way for the companies to take on the risk and not the individual investor. I'm not talking about DeFi and that type of stuff. It would eliminate the fraud. There would be more incentives to stop fraud. But they start coming out saying everyone has to dox themselves, everyone has to do this, everyone has to do that. I know it's a topic they don't know enough about, and the people advising them don't have. They have their own reasons for wanting to do that, and they don't have our best interests in it. And our best interests are let this thing iterate, let it go. It's the fastest rate of capitalism you can imagine, and the new products that have come out will revolutionize the whole world economy. And we got to let that happen. And if we want it to happen in the U.S., we can't regulate it to death. Sorry, Gabriel.
I wanted to tell you that I just don't believe they want to protect people. More like they heard, someone stole $100 million and how we can tax him? I think that's the thinking more than how we can protect people from stealing it. No, we can tax people.
Yeah, I think exactly.
More correct.
I think that's an interesting thought. One of the things that I feel like with the U.S. government is that even the people, like I know a guy who's running for Congress.
I have to go. So,
all right, Gabriel, good to talk to you. Speak with you again.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys, and see you soon.
See you soon. And so, what I find so interesting is that the backside behind the actual governments. That some of them, like I don't think Biden understands. I don't think Yellen really understands, right, fully what she's doing. I think she is manipulated by certain people, like you said, that have various thoughts, and they are the ones who pay her and her kids and her grandkids, right?
Right.
So I
agree with you on that.
So I feel as if there is this misdirection that they're trying to set up, so that they can establish their own system, a new world system for themselves, so that they can come in. And they're just using crypto as a way to bring civil unrest within the markets at large. That's really what I think is kind of going on, but it's not working to their benefit. They've almost lost steam because of the Savisa sickness. We never say the real name because we'll get in trouble. So, and I don't want to get taken off the air for whatever, right?
No, the whole area of adoption and the various governments of the world coming in to regulate this is very, very gray. It's very adversarial, and it's because there's too many issues for. I mean, this is what we deal with day to day, crypto. If you're a leader in the U.S. House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, the British Parliament, or one of the 8 million in the EU, you have a lot of topics to deal with. Not just crypto. You've got healthcare, you've got national defense, you've got everything. You can't possibly learn everything you need to about everything. And while we end up being experts in our little area here, they, by definition, have to be generalists. And generalists don't make good decisions. The adage is generally that generalists don't make good decisions on things unless you have a very mature market, because then you can then the market is self-regulated and that type of stuff. And while crypto is new, 4 months ago crypto is different than now, and 4 months before that it was different. And when we started when the market exploded a year and a half ago and everyone started coming in, the market's totally different now. We went through just buying a coin, everyone FOMOing in. Then they're a charity-based coin. Oh, it's FOMO into that. Oh, they have staking. Oh, they have this. Oh, you can pay with this. Now we have lending protocols, and now we have NFTs, and we have all these other things. A year from now, there's going to be 16,000 more new types of uses for this. But if we stifle that with regulation, it's not good. And so every time I go to one of these blockchain things, something like that, I said, if you're setting policy, long-term policy, not just something to address short-term things like little bits of fraud here and there or tax reporting requirements, but long-term policy things, you need to think of the big picture and how the rest of the world will innovate around us very quickly.
We will lose. Yeah. I mean, we could very much, if we allow for free market development within crypto in America, because I truly believe that the biggest thinkers are in America. It sounds horrible, like I'm a racist, right? But generally, I feel like we have the highest percentage of people of ADD who are typically known as more.
We're iterating in our own brains very quickly.
Yeah, like, and in the same sense as we do come up with new ideas, and then out of those people, about 80% of them, 90% of them are going to fall off on those ideas because they don't remember. But that 10%, will create something that will be revolutionary. I would love to see, right, that become more, see that flourish, right, and it's not going to happen. Now, I know that you went. Talk about a little bit about where you were this weekend, if you don't mind me asking.
I was like I said, I split my time in Canada, and in Canada, I'm closer to the regulatory climate than I am here, just because I live in the nation's capital in Canada, and I get to go to events. Like just last week, I was at an event that had to deal with startups and entrepreneurship and promoting innovation and that type of stuff. And so, and the event kind of lacked a crypto aspect of it because not intentionally, not because of an oversight, it was intentional. It was dealing with the startups and building things and that type of stuff. But in speaking to someone there, about crypto and about adoption and about regulation and all that, Canada has a different problem in that the provinces are strong. They're strong. They have stronger than U.S. states in regulation, and the province of Ontario has an overreaching regulation. Like they've even said that you can only own $30,000 worth of any crypto coin except the ones we approve of, which is Bitcoin, Ether, 3 other ones.
Wow, really?
Yeah. because they said, oh, it's just all fraud and criminals. And so if you have more than that, you're obviously a criminal. And we're like, wait a minute. And so I'm constantly speaking to people there that don't understand it and don't get it. And when I try to tell them, like I give them an equation, are you doing this to the futures markets, the oil, gas, and all that? Are you saying you can't own more than, as an individual investor, I couldn't own $30,000 more of oil futures? Well, no, not allowed to. No, why not? Why? So why are you saying I can't own $30,000 worth of XLM? Or if I've bought 20,000 and it values to 40, I have to sell 10. What? And
or even $20,000 in a small market cap, right?
Right.
And
it
all
explodes.
of a sudden, and all of a sudden now I'm 100. I have 300, 400 million dollars worth of XYZ, and I know that sounds crazy, but not really.
But I speak to these people and I try to drive it home to them that the important part here is to set the basis for innovation and to allow it to grow, to nurture it, and to kind of like herding the cats. You just kind of like, your regulation needs to be like this. You're pushing them all forward. You're not constraining them like in a circle and putting rules around them. You're just kind of nudging them in the right direction. And where you see things go awry, like with fraud, well, you go to the industry and say, how can you regulate this? And the industry will tell you how they can regulate themselves, and either let them do it or you incentivize them to do it. But if you do it, if the government comes in and regulates it, it's going to be a long-term problem. A great example, I go over and I tell people, I say the banking industry in the U.S. Everyone's like, wow, that's the most heavily regulated thing in the world.
And it's stopped.
But what people don't understand is that the banking regulations are almost all self-regulated. The American Banking Association sets 99% of the rules of the ways banks operate, their liquidity levels, all that type of stuff. And the federal government just kind of oversees it to make sure it's going fine. And then they work the fringes of it. And it seems like, Congress has an amazing power over the American whole banking system. But really, they leave it up to industry to regulate. And the American Banking Association does a great job of that. And there's no single entity in crypto that does that. So since there's no single voice and no single entity that does it, the old white men in Congress say, we need to do this. We need to stop those evil Bitcoiners from mining Bitcoin. And did they dig it up in the ground? Is that where they find this stuff? Maybe my property has some Bitcoin in it. And we're like, oh.
Dude, I hate to say, but I think they don't really understand. Somebody asked Prince Charles. I want to real quick just talk about this. I believe that they're stopping a lot of things, and the idea of fraud when you consider, and I mean from a general sense, right? That the U.S. government comes in and they put in some parameters, but then they give the states the ability to maneuver behind, and so it stops faulty industries that would allow certain things to really just decimate America, right? That's literally what we do. It's how it's set up. In regards to the regulations in crypto, instead of taking on this idea that we've literally placed where this is going to have the ability to be able to bring a new industry that could, again, put America at the forefront of the world's economic prosperity system. Right? I don't know what to call it, right, from a fundamental standpoint. But, we've been for years that country, and we very much have the ability to do it now. But the reality is this, is that we keep letting, and I like the old white men, go in, and we can easily, if we were to come together as cryptos nation here in America and say, listen, this is our headquarters. Everybody come to this Telegram and let's talk, right? And say, look, because most people, if you're following us, you probably know that the majority of crypto is on Telegram, right? That's where everybody goes. It's almost like if I want to go and get into politics, where do I go? Go to Washington. If I want to go and get into the movies, where do I go? Hollywood, LA, exactly, right? If I'm going to get into the financial world, where do I go? New York, right? It's just the mindset. So I say that crypto is in Telegram. if we were to sit down and get together and tell people, hey, look, we need to come and start self-regulating, start to take care of a massive amount of, if rug pulls, we start going through and handling people and put boots on the ground, right? I think it was Ascend the Pad that actually has people who work for the UN. They actually have people who can actually go through and they know how to actually go through and regulate a system and actually bring, they work with Interpol, saying in Europe where they can go to a nation and throw up a badge and say we're part of the XYZ international thing of crypto right now, and we need to check this out over here because this is where we find, and we bring in the feds or that country's feds, and we go after these people. If something like that was to truly happen, it would then bring an umbrella of safety where the old white men in Congress can sit there and say, you know what, they're doing it, we're seeing it, now it would be good. But
I can't stress enough how correct you are in that. In fact, one of my friends is a former U.S. prosecutor, U.S. assistant U.S. attorney, and dealt a lot with the FBI's financial crime units. And I asked him, I said, look, I've watched 6 rug pulls go on here. I can kind of figure out who's behind it. But if you guys were to put a bunch of 28-year-old newly minted FBI agents in it that know about technology and crypto and just say, go at it, they'll figure out who it is within 5 minutes or, however long, some fast period. Follow it, figure it out. If there's an international aspect to it, they're in another country. The FBI has liaisons at every embassy around the world. You can work with the locals, get their federal agents involved, and just bust a couple. All you need is a couple of guys doing the perp walk for a $50,000 rug pull, and the rug pulls will stop. They'll stop. People be like, and say, well, you have a fiduciary responsibility to protect that liquidity pool. Man, I got to tell you, it would go a long way. But the FBI and the various enforcement groups in all the countries, they're loaded up, and also the people that lead them, in generally in U.S. Agencies and law enforcement, they don't take on anything that they know that they're not going to win, because if God forbid somebody loses a case, their career is over. That's how it works. Yep. But just get a bunch of junior guys and say, here, or let us crowdsource it. I mean,
honestly, crowdsource would really be it, right? Put a bounty.
Give us some investigative tools that only they can use, like the agreements to have the underlying data between corporate transactions and stuff like that. Just let us crowdsource it. Well, the internet would figure out every rug pull in about 48 seconds and be like, beep.
Dude. I give it. Realistically, I give it. Realistically, a month and a half, 2 months, where all of a sudden, and we give them a 5% finder's fee, right? Finder's fee.
Yep.
People in third world countries who really, they went and got their education in coding and all this other stuff, but they can't find a job, right? And all of a sudden now, you have the ability where I can sit there and Gabriel was talking about how those to go in and figure out how to make $100 million, right? They would take their lifetime. But if you can make 5% off of $100 million, it's just as good. All of a sudden, you flip the script on them. It reminds me of the movie with what was it? Not Taken. With what's his name? The guy who created Braveheart. No. The guy who created Braveheart.
Mel Gibson? No.
Mel Gibson. There was a movie that he created where his son got kidnapped. And he was freaking, he didn't know what to do. And then finally at the very end, he just got pissed and said, you know what? I was going to pay you guys $10 million. But the reality now, I'm putting this out. He does this on public TV. Anybody who finds you will get the $10 million. And all of a sudden, like the people who got together to kidnap his son turned on each other.
Oh, yes, I remember that movie. I remember. Yeah. I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember sitting there, and I literally thought to myself, if we could figure out a way to do that. Like, I was like, that would be the essence of, that would then, the very people who stole the money would look at each other and go, hey guys, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, right? And then it's like it was just it was a brilliant thing. You incentivize people not with laws, but with money. Like everybody does everything for money, right? Maybe I'm assuming, maybe people don't, right?
We have the problem here in Chicago that crime is out of control, like many large cities, and the police force is overwhelmed, underfunded, all that type of stuff. And a bunch of us were talking about it. A bunch of friends were talking about it, and like we collectively, if we just like instead of having detectives have crowdsourcing it, we could probably figure every crime really quickly. I mean, a good example is the police. The police are having a tough time finding this guy that was walking around the city grabbing girls' butts, and they were very unhappy with it. Blah, blah, blah. One of the enterprising news organizations that has a heavy Twitter presence said, hey, look, the police can't find this guy. Here's 2 pictures of him. He's riding the moto scooter, the one-wheel skateboard things, and here's of him walking. It wasn't a day and a half later that the internet had it figured out who he was. Here he is going into work. Here's the video cam from the neighbor, and here's all this kind of stuff. Similar with crime, similar with rug pulls. All they got to do is just bring in the good tools and use the power of the internet to do it. Or at least start a little FBI division that is empowered to go out in the public and say, like, not filter through 93 agencies and PR people. Just say, click, we're trying to find the guy that runs this. We think he had a Lithuanian accent or something like that. Can anyone help us? People would make entire careers, that they would just say, I'm just helping this and figuring it out. They would go, we've seen it happen in other things. It would work. It would work.
I agree 100%. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we can see.
Payback. Mako says the movie was Payback. Right.
That's what it was. Yeah, Payback.
Right.
I think about sometimes when as a society, like, yes, society at large, I believe is good. Individually, in pockets, we're evil, right? Like you have the crowd mentality, right? But then once you step away from the crowd mentality, it's just like, oh, shoot, that was stupid, right? So every person, I believe, is pushed. I don't think anybody, I believe there are some people who just want to be evil, like Jeffrey Manson, right? Or Jeff Manson, right? But I think like 99% of the population don't aspire to be a Jeffrey Manson, right? Or Jeff Manson, right? Like, just, they're not. So if you could incentivize them to be able to sit there and say, look, we will pay you just to be a good person. Okay.
Right.
Like, legit.
Problem is everyone's going to want that. Then we'll have people claiming, I want universal basic income again.
Oh, man. Dude, I don't even want to. We'll leave that one alone.
I think while we still have Mako on here, he asked a question that I do want to take some time to answer, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
He asked the question. Basically, the question is: all these other tokens do you see them uncoupling from Bitcoin or the major markets and things like that? And to answer your question, Mako, I do not see it happening very broadly. I see it happening in individual things when unique circumstances cause one project to do very well, a new product, a new announcement, and a big partnership, something that drives it to be independent from the market. But what happens earlier in the show, I spoke about the retail people leaving and institutions coming in. And what institutions do is they trade in baskets. They mitigate their. So, if someone says, all right, junior level trader, here's $100 million, let's invest in crypto. They go right to CoinMarketCap and say, all right, Bitcoin is 30% of the market, and they make a basket of all those. And they do that, and they have different ones based on their risk profiles. And so when the market moves, they say they don't just trade, I'm selling my Bitcoin. They unload their position in the basket. Right. And many years ago, I worked for a company that ultimately became Lehman Brothers. It was called Shearson Lehman in their commodities and futures markets. And that's what they did. I worked on the commodities and futures trading floor, and people would say, all right, I want to buy oil, but they wouldn't just buy oil. They'd buy all the crack derivatives of it. They'd buy the heating oil. They'd buy the propane. They'd buy benzene and that type, gasoline and this type of stuff to limit their exposure to it. And that's what the major houses do. And they do that because they have risk profiles. So if they trade all of these things, when they sell, that's why, more than a year ago, the markets didn't move in such concert together. All the, BNB, obviously, your BSC chain projects moved with BNB, and that type of stuff. But now everything Bitcoin's dumping, so everything dumps. And it's mostly because it's not because individuals are shitting themselves. Don't let me wreck your YouTube thing here. But it's not like people are running. Like my example is people running out of their house and going, "Oh my God, I got to sell my car. Bitcoin's dumping." That's not what's going on. What it is a bunch of guys are sitting in their offices going, Bitcoin's down. Let's minimize our position. And so they sell 10% of their Bitcoin holdings, but it also that sells 10% of their Cardano, 10% of their XRP, 10% of their BNB, 10% of that. And it's just a basket. And until they recalculate those ratios, like, oh, XRP is becoming more profitable. Let's put more in our portfolio or less in our portfolio. That the coupling, it's hard to break those couplings unless without your individual project having a reason to. So it goes down to the big money coming in, and big money mitigates risk. And they do that by basket trading. Just like day traders. A day trader, you have your little spreadsheet with all your things in this topic over here. You're like, I'm going to trade all of these. And I know every day, 8 of them are going to move in one direction and 2 are going to move in the other direction. I just don't know which ones. And that's the same thing these guys do, but they do it with $100 million, not with $1,000 basket of cryptos.
Like you can see, I have my cryptos, right? I look at certain aspects. I know, from a financial standpoint, if I'm looking and I'm thinking they're putting money into the financials, I'm gonna play with XRP, with Crow, right? A few other back with Celsius, right now, Celsius, dude. Even among all their crazy, bro, and they're falling apart, they're still holding. Like we're talking.
Everybody keeps thinking that what's his name? What's the guy's name from FTX?
Binkman. Sam Binkman.
Yeah, Sam. He's just gonna throw money at them, so that's holding them up. But if there weren't the threat of somebody buying them like that, and something may have happened behind the scenes already that I'm just unaware of. So, but that's holding Celsius up.
It's real interesting, man. It's actually really, really interesting. It might be that Bankman might just say something just to get, because he can't get in trouble. I mean, there's no real laws right now. So if he was able to get it back down to these lower levels here, to buy it at these low levels, I think he would. I think he would buy it if we saw a major massive sell-off at like 8 cents or 5 cents, right? He would sit there and be like, okay, I'm going to come in and save him. And all of a sudden, now he quadruples his money, right, to come back up into these levels here. So just really interesting to sit there, right, to see what's actually going on. And on top of it, I feel like if Bankman was to step in and do it, also because he's got a lot of friends in the traditional finance world. So all he's got to do is make calls. I mean, we've all seen how calls are made with much of the manipulations that happen within the market based off of Kramer's video, right? Like, remember the video that leaked out about him, how they manipulate the market?
Right.
Like, we know that that's what happens. They make a call to their buddy at XYZ, Goldman Sachs, and says, hey, I'm buying in at this level, or whatever. Right? I've already had my position in. If you want to step in and get it going, boom. And then they come out with a bunch of false narrative and the actual traditional finance, right, where they start to kick out bad stories on Celsius again. People start selling off more, and then the institutions come in and buy it, ding, 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 and now they've got 1,000x, right? It wouldn't even be that much, for Celsius to get back up to $1.40, $1.50, right? And buy it at 5 cents, 4 cents, right? Like,
I swear, if it doesn't, and I didn't buy it because I was ruling it out, it's gonna be another mark on my wrist from wanting to kill myself.
Dude, I remember seeing that. I actually was covering it back in July. So I was actually going through, and actually I was happy, dude. Like I sat there, I remember seeing this huge buy, right, boom, and then the sell off. But if you look at the internal markings of it, it actually was a ton of buyers on the smaller time frames, right? And you had a major sell off that sold off, and you still had a bunch of buyers. So I was like, oh snaps! So I got in around these levels here, and then we just had this huge rally here. So for me, I'm just looking at that going like, now I am, Celsius. This is not financial advice, but I am bullish in the fact that Sam Bankman, I think he wants to buy it. They have a lot of assets in Bitcoin. Like they have real assets. Like it's not like they took a loan and bought more Bitcoin at the top, right? And we all know that once we come back into that bull market, if he buys them for pennies on the dollar, I mean literally pennies. I'm talking 7 cents, 5 cents, right? Where it's just a sell-off, and then this man comes in. I think partly this big rally is simply because he's buying in at these levels. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden we see this baby come back all the way up to I think they got up to 10, or that was 10. No, maybe I'm wrong. $5. They came up to $5, but still they're buying at 5 cents. Dude, that's 100x. And then he actually has real crypto, that's tied into it, but intrinsically it does have natural value from a crypto fundamental standpoint. It's important to say, because from a fundamental standpoint, typically crypto does not.
Pedro, I haven't known you that long, but your optimism and the depth you're getting into this, it's like in your blood already. I can tell.
I could be like, oh, Pedro, you are off, and I could be wrong. I say, I'm always willing to be wrong, but I mean, you're good. You're
going to be happy that you're right, because in crypto, the markets are eventually going to have a nice, awesome bull run. So we'll all be right about everything. But two, the basic ideas you're espousing, why people do things, are generally pretty true. Like ultimately, people want to do the right thing. There's plenty of crazy people out there, but with Sam, ultimately he sees a deal, and he has the money to make the deal. And so there's a natural incentive for that to happen, to make the deal. And Celsius will make a deal if they have to. They're forced to make a deal because of some reason, or just because they see a good deal too. And the deal with FTX seems to be a great deal. And they're just right down the street here in Chicago. And they're I guess they're also an offshore company, but really their headquarters is here down the street. And they're getting all the press here lately. I mean, they've sponsored Major League Baseball. They've got plenty of money behind them from an investment perspective. They got plenty of money because they're making plenty of money. And they're from operations, and they're making money from their investments, from buying, their own trading. Sam famously has this little side project. I can't remember the name of it, that does the house trading for him. And that's making a fortune. And so they're using that money to be, altruistic in the crypto world. As when I used to live in the Middle East, and they say it was awesome because they had a benevolent dictatorship. It was someone who was in charge, had all the money, but wanted all the right things to happen. And that's what Sam's doing. And that's a good thing, because good things happen when people have the money and they make good decisions and they look out for your industry. It's when people get greedy and try to line their own pockets when things go awry. And we're seeing that happen, like when Celsius executives took money out ahead of their issue. Always a big problem to take $10 million out right before your company gets almost insolvent. And but it's good to have people come in like Sam and do these types of things.
I forget. I don't know if it's the Celsius executive or if it's what's the other one that fell apart?
Luna?
No, not Luna. So I'm talking about a financial institution. Voyager. I don't know if it was Voyager.
Right.
executive or Celsius exec, but they're actually went through it. Now they're working for some major, I think it was a major bank. I was reading through the article real quick. I mean, you know, as much as a guy, you know, doing podcasts, you read through like 15, 20 articles a day, right? Like you're just click, and you catch the gist of everything and read through it maybe once or twice real quick and then right on to the next one, right? And so, but I was reading through it and I sat there and I was just thinking, man, you know what this reminds me of? It's literally Lehman executives going over to Goldman Sachs and getting jobs. Like, the irony of all of this is just awesome. Like, it's just not awesome, but it's just.
Oh. No, hey, we just crashed our company. Can we come work for you? Sure, come on in.
Yeah, because they're all friends. I mean, realistically, is that they are.
No, they are. They are. You live in Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
I'm from Connecticut and New Jersey, and so I know that, you know, because Wall Street was the hub of this stuff, so everyone lives there. Ultimately, you live in the same towns, and your friends, you grow up with people, and they get a job at one company, you're at another.
Yep.
That's how it works.
That's how I had a friend of mine. He's a 40-year trader from the Chicago Board of Trade. So his friend, his name is Robert Dunn. He's traded on the floor for almost 30 years, right? Until, you know, the floor has died down. Now it's all digital, right? Trading.
Right.
And it was so interesting that how he came into it. Chicago Board of Trade, right? That he thinks it's like the market, the meat market, right? So all his friends started getting jobs there, right? And they're like, we can get you on, man. We get you as a trader and get you up and running and going. And he's sitting there and he goes, no, I don't want it. I'm good. And these guys are just killing it. They're buying new houses, driving around Ferraris now, right? Like back in the 80s. And he's like, dude, how is it that you guys being butchers can make all that money? And he goes, what are you talking about, butchers? Because we trade it, not the actual real meat, but like contracts. And all of a sudden, he's like, so he comes out and he realizes, he's like, oh, it's not a meat market. So the next day, he accepts the job. Like, you know, and that's how it is they're all friends. They all kind of grew up in the same area, or maybe went to college with you, and we were hanging out. We got drunk one day, and you know, you inappropriately touched me, and we became buddies, right? Like, whoever it is.
Well, I can see his confusion because if you're unfamiliar with Chicago, there's the Board of Trade right downtown, and just south of it, by only, you know, in city terms, it's many blocks, but in Uber terms, it's a $5 Uber. Is an area called the Stockyards, and the Stockyards is where all the Midwestern slaughterhouses were, right downtown Chicago.
Oh wow!
And literally the people would take the train, or before the train, ride their horse down to the Stockyards, see who had more inventory, or, you know, did the inventory come at the right time from the drive from Southern Illinois or from wherever? Did the ship come in on time? And then go back to the Board of Trade and sell. And so they essentially, you know, were working in concert with the the slaughterhouses back in the day when they would trade meats and things like that. That part of the Chicago used to have a stench that was unrivaled.
Bro, but the billions they must have made. I'm sorry. So my friend, so now he thought they were.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense. I've never been out to Chicago, so I really don't know the lay of the land that well. I need to go out there. It's interesting, but the point is this: they're all friends. They all talk to each other. If they need a deal done, if they need something to happen, they get it done. Long story short, if he had a bad trading day, right, during lunchtime, he would sit there and stand in front of the market maker and go, you know, like, if he's looking to sell, he'd be like, bid it, and then so he would bid it, right? If he was going to go bid, right, he'd be do the ask, and so he would feed him right in front, like nobody's there, or maybe there's like a few people there, right? But they would take care of him. They would honestly take care of him, make sure that they're all friends. They all go down. You know, there was a huge tobacco shop downstairs, right, where they all smoke cigars, right? With
Yes.
and so that's what like if you had a bad day, but the next day they make sure they took care of you, right? Or they may run you down, right? So they all are friends, and this is the same type of stuff that happens in London, right? A guy goes out there and makes friends with a bunch of London traders, right? Because he goes to the floor and he's trading with them. So he comes back to the United States. Well, you got a buddy now on the floor of the United States. So you call him and say, hey, what's going on? Ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba. They connect, right? Somebody from Tokyo, same idea, right? It's how it works. So that's why I think Sam Bankman is looking to buy Celsius at a lower level, and I think he's going to be going there. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I do think that that's what they're waiting for, because there's real they have real Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying? I mean, granted, they may be worth $500 million, $400 million versus, what was it, like their peak was like 3 billion or something like that, whatever it was. But it was still. What are your thoughts? I see you thinking.
Sorry, my phone rang. I don't remember what their liabilities were. I just remember it was a lot.
Yeah. They had a lot of money though invested in. There's real money in there. There's real money in there. So it's real interesting to see what's actually going on in the market and actually how they established everything. Jumping back to the charts here real quick, so I can just bring this up, and I think it's real interesting, is Cardano. Right? Cardano is another one that I find very interesting. That we're seeing the sell off here, like what we've been talking about, right? But I let everybody know, like, we're following the 8-period moving average, but wait for that retracement. If you're looking to be getting in, wait for the retracement down at the 20-period moving average. And if you are short, wait for a doji on a daily chart here and wait for it to rally up, because I don't think that we're going to stop at this 34, 30 mark. I think we're coming back. I think we're coming down to the 15-cent mark. So on a level up here, from a fundamental, or not from a technical standpoint, I really think that it probably will continue down. Partly, I think he pissed off because they were all friends, and and he started talking smack. The CEO of Cardano started talking smack about a few other currencies, and it's like, hey, I have Cardano, I also have Solana, I also have this. So when you start talking trash, in crypto, it's very cultic, right? People are emotional. They'll sell off on you because you said something bad about their other coin, right? So I think that's what we're seeing. But from a I still think they're a good company. I still think that they got a lot of good things going on. But from a actual like technical standpoint, guys, be waiting for it to keep coming down. You hit that 20-period moving average, which is going to be that weekly 8-period. So that's going to be around here. You should see this come back down into this levels here and see a bounce off of this. But the nice thing behind it is there are a lot of buyers that did push this up, but from a actual volume point, not enough, because I do see us keep continuing down to our lower levels here. So that's in a nutshell from there. What are your thoughts on Cardano?
Let me get back to it here. Sorry, my green screen just went to hell. I just had a note about Cardano.
Yeah.
Where did it go?
Well, I could also go to keep pulling it up, because I'll sit here. This is the other thing I want to bring up as well. So on a monthly chart here, this is important to see that, like, it's still very negative. Like, look, we are below. Yeah, we are below the lows here, and I'm waiting for a retracement back up. You can see here, as we're seeing a sell-off here, we are seeing a drop in volume, but that volume again is not predicated on buys or sell. It's just a lack of interest. So I do think that it will continue down, or at least dribble down into our lower levels.
Right. Well, what happened? I can't find what I was looking for, but if I recall, they had an issue in which they had to do a hard fork a couple of months ago, something like that. And the anticipation was that the hard fork would make everyone go, "Huh, okay, everything's fine." And it didn't work out. I mean, they fixed whatever problem they had, but they didn't make anything better. So the people were like, "Meh," like I said with DOT, meh, and their buyers haven't come back as they expected it to. And that's why you're on your chart showing, new lower lows.
That makes sense, because if you can't produce from a fundamental standpoint, those guys who are invested huge, and I mean, a lot of them are negative, right? Like unless you got in at the low levels of when they were down at like 5 cents, 4 cents, right? Which would still be ahead. But even at this level, the way the market is sitting, like, do you think that they'll probably come out with another technology? I don't know in detail what they actually do, but do you think they'll come out, or you think again it's just?
Well, they were promoting when they had their big hyper growth and all that. They were fast. They were like, this new thing is fast, and they had what's his name from Band Kiss, Gene Simmons, or Peter Chris. I don't know which guy it was. The guy with the long tongue, Gene Simmons, promoting it. And he's like, yeah, I got in and I put 300. They're like, this guy's put 300K into it. He's betting the future. He's turned that 300K into a lot of money. Let me tell you that. But they were faster. The transactions were faster. We're going to be this. It's being proven. It's all this kind of stuff. They launch. It's big. It's great. Everything's good. They've had their problems. They didn't. The developers. There's articles about how they skipped on quality to meet timeframes, so the FOMO would continue. But as far as that, a lot of money, like with many crypto projects, a lot of money got made because people were just in early, and the FOMO pushed the price up a lot. And eventually, those people want their money. Eventually, people say, "Oh, I put $5,000 into it back in the day, and it's worth 100 now." Eventually, you want that new swimming pool, or even just I got 2 kids now. I got to buy a Suburban for the wife. They want their money, and they're going to take it. And if you don't have, the old equation is, if you don't have buyers coming in to match the sellers, the price is going to obviously go down. And that I think I can't tell from your chart, but the volume level is probably also indicative of what's going on.
Exactly
there.
Absolutely. We're actually.
I don't know what time frame is your chart.
Oh, this is monthly. This is a monthly.
Yeah, give us give us a little the weekly or daily chart or something. Yeah,
we can pull out.
The volume's not that bad, but it's it's tapered over the past all summer. But we have also seen that in much of crypto too. But in a slow market, and as you can tell from staring at these charts all day, when there's low volume and people want their money, the price goes down.
Always. It is. You can literally guarantee it. I mean, if somebody needs to do an analysis of that, where you can sit there and go, okay, here are the sentiments of what it should look like. You basically have a decreasing volume coming down, see a sideways market. Well, that is typically the onset of a potential leg down. It's just, I don't know what the percentage of that is, but it's pretty big. It's almost one of those that I can sit there and go, no, that's what's going to happen. Whatever you want to feel, Look, people aren't feeling that. And because, if people are feeling something, you see green candles. You see an increase in volume, i.e. right here, right? Boom, boom, boom. But as soon as it started to sell off, you started losing volume of buyers. Well, what do we see? Ding, 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 right? You're going to see now a little bit of a rally up. This rally up is going to come up, hit a resistance level. People making money here down at this level. But also in the same sense, people who lost money here are going to want to recoup that money. So it's like they may even buy. I mean, crypto holders are a bit different, right? We look at these levels here and we go, oh, that's a good. If I've lost money from here, I'm thinking maybe I should buy here. So
right. And I, from the psychological point of view, from when I help people with projects and when I look at things, a lot of people say we're in it for the long term. We don't care what the chart looks like now, whatever. We're not worrying about it. I tell them over and over and over and over again, you have to worry about what the chart looks like because it's your only marketing material. And even with big projects, once that volume starts to go and the selling starts and people take their money, new people come in and say, oh, the selling's going on. I like the project, but I'm going to wait for the selling to
sell off.
to kind of level off.
Yeah, level off.
And that causes the sell-off to continue because there's not that new influx of buyers just sitting there waiting. Like, they'll just wait. But then there's not one guy, there's 10 guys, and there's 20. There's all these buyers that want to, and then they're like, I'm going to wait because it's selling off still. And then what do people in crypto do? They move on because we have short attention spans. And they move on to something else, and the selling still happens. And the only way it stops is by some really good news, or a really big buyer comes in, an institutional buyer or something that takes a position. And once those early adopters and insiders with all the money, the big wallets start selling, it's the same thing in DeFi meme coin land. And it used to projects used to take, a month for that to happen. Now it happens in 20 minutes. Launch, that's out.
20%.
Gone.
They're looking for 20% now, not 2x, not 3x. They're looking for 20%, 20, 30,
right.
40,
And
30.
they do that over and over and over a day, and you've 2x'd your money without the risk of being in one project. And so that is a problem that Cardano can have. And they need big announcements. They need a big investor to step in and take a position, a big institution to come in. Like, you see other groups say, oh, we're, JP Morgan's establishing its XRP trading desk. That is a bullish sign. That's like, okay, there's going to be people who get paid to make sure this price goes up by putting clients in it. And Cardano needs to come up with something like that.
I agree. I think that's, if they need to come up with another utility that will push them forward, even if it's another marketplace, right, where they come out with like a new staking opportunity. It doesn't matter, right? Because crypto, like, again, we're our attention. Ooh, look, that's new. Okay, Ronald, right? Like, oh yeah, hype is real. Hype is real, especially in crypto. Like, like sell the rumor, or is it buy the rumor, sell the news, right? But if you keep nothing but rumors keep kicking in, it's the mindset of jeans. Oh, it's gonna get bigger. Okay, let me throw more in. Oh, it's gonna be bigger. Oh, throw more. It's just how they run. So
I remember when I first learned the term Jeet, people were using it in Telegram, and I was like, well, what is this Jeet? But watching 10 people comment, I quickly got the context of it, and I started laughing, and I loved it. And at first, I thought it was like an insult to a culture, someone's culture. It's like certain people from certain countries or something like that. Then I realized it didn't matter what country you're from, you could be a Jeet. And I just love it. And I love it. And if you've ever watched my shows, I use education and humor. I use humor in my education thing, and it's one of the things that just makes me laugh. You got the shit cheated out of their project. It's terrible to say that, but it makes me laugh. And I like using humor in my
it's a must.
in my project. Yeah,
I need to become more funnier. I look more because I see things sequential, and I'm like, all right, ding, 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 right? And it's dry. To me, it's so entertaining. I'm like, man, there's money here. I'm literally giving you money right here. Take more money. And people are like, oh, it's dry. But if I could just make it funny, like for example, people right here, aped in. Like, they full on aped in. When I heard the first meaning of aped in, I thought they were talking about different things. I was like,
I thought they're talking about NFTs. I'm like, ape.
Oh, that's
like
funny.
apes. I'm talking about apes.
Ape board yacht club, something like that.
These are the NFTs a year and a half ago that are barely existed, and I was like, I don't understand this. It's aping. I don't want to be an ape.
I could have bought. I was looking the way. Remember when they did the protocol for lending it, and you could lend it out, and people, go through and capture. They basically created like a call option type of thing, right? You could make off of it by borrowing it, right? And I sat there and I literally thought about how I could borrow something for a very small amount, make that money as it rallies and sell off, and then buy a new one, an actual real one for its real price, right? And I was like, nah, they wouldn't. They would have already thought about that. And sure enough, that one kid went through. I think it was like a 15-year-old or 16-year-old kid went through and borrowed like 4 or 5 of them, right? And then sold them off. And then he, brought in a few $1 million off of it. And I sat there and I was like, freaking A, man. Like, but it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And dude, and he aped in on that protocol. He understood what was going on, paying attention, and capitalized on it. And now he's a millionaire. And that can only happen in crypto. Like that is a crypto reality right there. If you're paying attention, if you're in the mix, if you're in the world and you're saturating yourself, you can capitalize on these things so quick and become a millionaire.
Yep.
Like,
and the ones that I didn't capitalize on, that you're like, oh, how did I not capitalize on that one? And you look and you say, man, I would have. You look back at your wallet and you said, all right, I had 5 BNB, and at the time they were $300 each, so I had $1,500. And you look at it, and you're like, that could have been worth $90,000, and you're just like, ugh.
I've stopped doing the what ifs. Like the what ifs. I mean, I like to talk about it, like Dogecoin, right? Like, for example, we use Dogecoin. Here's another one, right? Like, I knew about this in 2017. Like, legit. Like, if you go to investing.com, you type in Dogecoin, it was on it. It was back in 2017 that they were around, right? That you could have been playing with them, right? And I remember it was nothing. It was like 0.00. It was like 4 zeros, 5 zeros back, right? Or you could have been playing with them. But you also had to sit there and wait from 2014 all the way up until 2021. Like, talking, like, that's 7 years. Like,
yeah, that's a long time waiting, especially in crypto.
In crypto, right? But you know what? The guy who waited goes back, i.e., Crypto Messiah, right? Goes through. He's a He's a mailman on his route, and he starts getting all these dings, 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 dings. He goes on to crypto Twitter, and he looks, and he has $20 million in his trading account, right? And he's like, how do I, sell? I think ultimately, I think he got up to like, I think it was maybe like $50 million or $60 million or something like that. I forget the full story, but like, that's real though, right? Like, that's real money. Now the guy sits there and he's a celebrity and he charges $10,000 to come onto a place, and and he goes on 3 or 4 calls a day. So. What's up?
I can't tell you my Dogecoin story. It was at Doge. It was $4. I'm sorry, 4.004.
Oh,
and it was right before it went up to like 12 and then 15, and before it started up, right before it started up to 70.
Yeah,
and it was so cheap that I like many people early on, we were buying it on Robinhood, and I had a couple of buddies and I would had this thing where we say, let's do it. We called it a toilet trade, and you bought Doge when you sat down and you sold it when you stood up, and we'd compare how much profit or loss you made, and it was always in you lost $5 or something like that. I made $6. It was it wasn't a big money thing. It was just something to do and talk about. I accidentally bought $11,000 one day by not doing the decimal right, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my god, all of my balance of Robinhood got put into Doge, and I was like, oh, and sure enough, phone rang. I forgot about it, and the next day it was worth like $12,500, and I'm like, oh, sold that, and took my $1,500.
When was that?
Not 2 weeks later, it's at 30 and 40, and then I was like, oh my god, I mistakenly bought it. And then I did the smart thing. And I saw my profits, and I'm like, I'm happy making $1,500 on this, dog coin thing. And then it just rocketed up to it. And I ended up buying a little extra in another account, and I was up like a couple of $100 right before Elon went on the Saturday Night Live, and I said that adage said sell the news. And so I sold it, and then right after Saturday Night Live, it just tanked. So and then you hear all these stories of the people that just held it on to 70, and some a few of them sold, and most of them wrote it back down.
Dude, like the majority of them were sitting right here, man. Like there's this right here. So there's this point where it goes up, right? I don't know who got in here. Right. This is some bigger. This was a big week for them. Where it rallied up right here. This is where it's sitting like at that 2-cent mark. Then it rallied, and then for almost 3 months, 2 months, we went sideways until it exploded. I sit there. This is hard because here's the thing: you just don't know, right? Like you don't know.
Nobody does.
You don't know. So it's like, like I bought Shiba. Shiba right now, when it was at 0.66 or 0.0, like it was down at that 600 mark, right? Real quick, actually, let me go into the analysis here real quick, guys. Shiba is doing the same thing that I had from last week. We're kind of going down consolidating. We hit that 8-period moving average on the weekly. Monthly, we're actually tapping up here. We have that 50-period moving average, and if we go to the daily, guys, it's again we're just consolidating off of these zones that I've been playing with, right? Which is at that 6-cent mark and that 5-cent mark area here, guys, or 5.5 area. So where we're at, again, we're seeing buyers and sellers both fighting back and forth. It's the same thing that we hit last week. Real quick, we'll do. Because I got to get going here as well. So I'm realizing I didn't realize that we had 3 hours on here too.
It just goes fast when you got lots to talk about.
Yeah. It's real interesting. So Shiba Inu is one of those ones that I originally looked at it, and I was like, I was bored. It was last year around June or July or August. I forget, one of those two. And the market was going sideways. And so I started getting all these dings and bings off of my investing.com. Like they were moving, and I said, let's check this out. And so around these levels, as I was starting paying attention to it, I realized, holy crap, I think institutions are actually playing with this, right? So, because I started seeing institutional candles being moved. And so the way they were moving, the way the volume was coming in and out. So I said, you know what? I'll know institutions are in this if they go below this area here, stop out all these people, and then see it rally with a big wick, right? And so I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm watching it, and all of a sudden I see this big old 5-minute candle, man, just like shoot off, boom, stop out all these people, right? And then I see just boom, shoot back up, and I'm like, institutions are involved in this. So I said, I'm gonna wait till it gets to this certain point just to make sure, right? Wait for a retracement back, and to see, I'm going to see the order flow kick in. And so I had, it was like crypto.com or something like that. I forget exactly which one it was. But I sat there, man, I jumped on it. I bought it at like a really low level. And I said, now, if this thing starts to rally hardcore, right, I'll probably sell a little and then wait because I want to move back, right? Well, I didn't. It starts to rally. It starts to come back down. But I sat there and I said, you know what? It should come back down to these levels here. We should see this come back to these levels down here because that's what markets do, right? If institutions are really involved, they shoot the market up. They let the FOMOs guys sell off. They short the market down. And then what they do then is kick in and they buy it back at these levels again. They do the same thing. And so sure enough, man, I had a friend of mine. He's like, where should I go? I said, listen, man, honestly, I see the 858 mark area and I see that 682 mark area as areas of potential buyers. See the market step in. And so he's like, really? I said, yep, we should see this area come in here and play off of it. So you can see that's actually kind of what's going on as we see it. We're starting to follow that 8-period moving average and the 20-period moving average down to these lower levels here. Now, when it comes to Shiba Inu, what are your thoughts on it?
I got to tell you, while only of ever being a small investor long ago in it and not really making any money in it, I am impressed that they're able to take this beast of a meme and turn it into something. And I mean, obviously, if you have money, you can do whatever you want. And so because a bunch of the insiders made a ton of money on it, they're able to invest in it. And now that what's the game that just came out that they? Whatever. That's starting. It's generating. Apparently, it's not generating the revenue they wanted to do and the burning they wanted to do. But it's generating news and bringing eyeballs back in, and that creates FOMO. And it's they've done a great brand recognition job. That Shiba Inu could have flamed out like Doge, no problem, and it didn't. And it didn't because they put the effort into it. Because some people, the group, were actually behind it. They said, "What do we need to do? Let's keep the young people involved. All right, we need a game. Let's do that. We need to keep the older people involved. Let's get it on exchanges and stuff like that. Okay, let's do that." And they did it they did a good job with it. And I have not invested in them in a long time, and especially frankly, I started watching it more because on the Clear Crypto's YouTube channel, Austin has a lot of SHIB content. So I was like, oh, let's just watch this. And so I was like, now I see. And they did a great job with their brand. They kept it relevant. They kept it in the news. They said we need to do this. They delivered on the game, and the mindless, shadowy consortium behind Doge hasn't done that, and so it's just gone back down to its natural floor, I believe, and that's the difference for that. Speaking of Clear Cryptos, this chart behind me on the wall is the Clear Crypto chart, and I got to tell you, it's the rare project. And I'm not on their team or anything like that. I'm not paid by them. And it's gone after their launch got botted, but it's gone from, if you bought it at the bottom of the bot, it's 100x, but it's 4x since it generally started trading properly. It's CCX on Dex it's on the ETH. It's on Ethereum, based on Ethereum, and in their chart, and there's people buying. Like the other day, it went up. Someone dropped 11 ETH on it in one trade. I was like, oh, that's very nice of you.
What is there? Did you get in on it?
Yeah, I bought some down at like 3.5, and now it's pushing 8 cents.
Bro, that's
but it's one of those ones where my point bringing them up is not to promote them. My point is that we went over a lot of tokens that showed the volume dropping off and the price going down. The guys behind this project want to make this, they have a proper company behind it, and they want to make it a similar, in famousness. I don't know what the right word to use there. Notoriety? No, that's suggests something evil. But they want it. They say we want it to be $1, $2, $10, things like that. And it's at 3 cents. It's at 4 cents. It's at 8 cents. And it's the rare thing that happened this week compared to the losers we're talking about and the downside. It's this one isn't trading in baskets yet, so it has the ability to go up.
Yeah,
based on good news, which it does have good news.
So it's CCL or CC? I'm sorry.
CCX.
It's interesting that they got on to DEX tools so quick. Or not DEX tools, but
yeah, they were on launch day. They were on all of these things. It is amazing.
Yeah, and I was actually I was in Brian's group sitting there, and they posted it, basically showing what's going on. Did they take it down? DEX tools.
Is it not working on CoinMarketCap?
Yeah,
should be the price. It's reporting the prices correctly. There it is.
Yeah, this is where, like you said, you're right. And this is, I want to point this out. Majority of the time, like technical analysis will work. I'll just be honest, right? Like, but when it comes to certain things, like you can't. Let me look at that, dude. That's brilliant, dude. Like that is, how much is that? 2. So if you came down and bought at the lows here, right? Somewhere around here, where as it started putting lower highs, and then started seeing consolidate here, let's say you get in at the 2, you may, or 3, you've made at least double your X, right, at this level here. So you come in 2 or 3 cents, you doubled it up. You can see, and you could see this rally. And the thing I like about it is this right here. You do have a defense against the sellers right here. You also have defense against sellers right here. So these sell-offs are a strong indication, basically meaning that there are real buyers stepping in as we're moving up. So you definitely could have played this even from here.
Yeah, and there's look at the dollar volume too. It's the daily volume in dollars is pretty significant. It's a brand new token. It's got a low
Market cap.
liquidity, high market cap, low liquidity ratio, but they've gone over that and said that this is their intention because they're using that money, for purposes in the business. They're not just putting it all in now, and they said we can always add liquidity later if needed to. They have a whole series of videos on why they did it this way. But whatever, it's working. They have good buyers. They have a lot of ETH coming into it from other projects. I shouldn't say from other projects. I should say from people outside of the sphere of influence. They're looking for that thing within a short period of time to be, as people within the project have told me, they don't really care about the chart. They want it to reflect how their company is doing. And so as they build their company, they know the chart will come along with it. And I was like, well that's combining that's the basics of fundamentals right there.
Yeah, it's literally based. Yeah. I mean, they started with about 15 million market cap, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they raised that all through private sale?
No, there's no, they just their own money.
Oh, their own personal.
They didn't take anyone's money. Yeah, it's a corporate investment. I've told people in the past, I said, the right way to start up a crypto company is the same way you start up any other company. You go out and you get investors, you like the old-fashioned way. You sit down with your spreadsheet and your PowerPoint presentation, you talk about it, and then they give you money. Angel investors do it, and you tell them, this is how I'm going to use your $1 million here. They got I think there's $10 million behind this initial seed round that they did, and you get proper investors to give you your money so you can operate and attain your goals. And then the value of their share of the company over time is worth a lot. But if you have to go sell a pre-sale and or private sale and 3 rounds of pre-sales, then raise money that people can immediately sell on day 2 of your company or day 1 of your company, it's not a great way to do it. It sucks. It helps you out. You get the project going, but eventually people are going to take their money really fast. They did it the proper way, like any other company. We are going to raise money and start our company, fund it. They've been going for 2 years. They started their development 2 years ago, but they really kicked into it, I think, about a year ago, 8 months ago. Got their swap up and running now, and they'll as they move towards their exchange, or I don't necessarily understand all of that right now. But they say as we roll out our company and as we make money, the token and all that will come along with it, and that's the right way to do it. It's not relying on people like getting all the good things out in the first time I hang out on your show, but it's things I've said in other places. Imagine me at a startup company. You and your friends get together and you start up your coffee company. It's a little one on the corner, and you raise $50,000 from your friends, and you're like, okay, we can open our coffee company up. We started open, and then on the first day, your friends come in and say, we want our $50,000 back.
Right.
In fact, you sold some coffees here, so you've made money. We want $58,000 back. And you're like, well, no, that's all my capital. Yeah. And that's when you have a pre-sale and a private sale to fund your liquidity pool, that's in essence what's happening, because people come in on day 1 and say, we want our startup, our money back, or we're taking our initial investment out. They're like, no, I need that money for my capital. Crypto companies are no different than real companies in that the money you give them to start up needs to be their strength. Needs to be what funds them. It needs to be their backing. It needs to be there. And when you allow that stuff to sell, some projects now are saying, there's one project that went out on ETH a couple of months ago. They said we were having a good private sale. you have to lock it up for a year. People are like, oh my God, a year. What do I, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well,
3 to 5 years for traditional.
Yeah, well, if your buddy says, I'm going to start a small manufacturing company, you can't go get your money on day one. Well, and so that's the point. And so the Clear Crypto guys obviously did this right by using their investments to fund their development. And then by the time their project comes out, there's nobody in the private sale or pre-sales that are cheating it. It's just people that want to buy it and heard this is going to be a multi-billion-dollar company at some day and say, might as well buy it now.
I think you're right. I mean, not just right, but I mean that fundamental aspect of, look, leave your money in, you don't touch it, and that allows the individual to actually go through. The only issue is how are we going to be able to get that out of Jeter's mind, right? Like how do you make them understand that, right? Because it's not something that is ingrained. It's in traditional finance, it's ingrained, right? Like if you invest into, let's say, Ford, right?
Well, the way you do it is like the way they did it here. And people cheat because they're worried about their money. And they cheat fast. And, the people used to wait for 5X and they used to wait for 2X. Now they wait for 20% because they're worried about their money. But when you do it, when you fund your company properly and you build a proper company, people are less worried. If people are more trusting about a project, there's less likelihood to ask for their money back on day one.
But it's all about, right, like conditioning, right? Like it's the idea of conditioning, how you setting up. Real quick, I want to jump at it in here real quick when it comes to Matic. Matic is showing some major strength. Like I told you guys, with this sell-off of Friday, and then we saw it come back and put a fatty wick in here. And buying off of this wick here is showing real strength. Then the last few days, we've watched them come in again where it's sell off, and then there is a hold here at this level. So you can see that when they came back and bought at this junction point, we saw a rally here through the supply zone, which we see right here, now coming up to this monthly moving average. I think it's weekly moving average sitting right here. So if you're still long at this level, pardon me, there might be a sell-off down to the lower level right here. Okay, but I'm still at a point at these levels where, like, it's showing a lot of strength as we're moving up, as we're pushing up. When we look at that daily chart here, a daily chart here, it hit pretty hard, like, but volume, when it comes down to it, why I'm saying that I'm expecting this to kind of see a sell-off down to this level here, simply because of the seller volume stepping in at a higher level than the previous. But I still believe, because we put in a higher high, right, and a lower high, or a lower low, or a higher low and a higher high, I'm definitely bullish on Matic. This is crazy, especially with what we're seeing with the overall market at large. So it's really impressive with what's going on with Matic. Any con?
I agree. I agree with that. Matic is a good operation, and they've got the transaction volume, and they've been very successful in getting the Polygon chain into the exchanges, so people could transfer their Matic off of ERC20, off the Ethereum chain and onto the Matic chain, reduce their costs for moving their Matic around and using them in projects, and thus their transaction volume has been good. And they're, from a brand perspective, they haven't really, other than getting $600 million stolen last year,
they've done a great job.
They've done a great job, right?
Yeah.
And they've managed expectations well. They haven't overpromised. Everyone's like, well, ETH 2.0 could kill Matic. ETH 2.0 has been, they had to get their proof of stake done first, and now they can work towards ETH 2.0, but that's even further down the road now. Matic's killing it, and they're doing well. And I when the market turns, a little bit into the bullish territory, they'll be one of the ones that the institutional houses put a lot of in their baskets. So I'll give them the CNBC Kramer thumbs up for that one.
Oh, do not bring that in. No. I'm about to kick you out right now. That's.
I went 20. I think I went 20 years without watching CNBC or something like that, or 15, some really long period of time. Yeah. I was visiting my mom and dad. My mom was watching CNBC, and I'm like, "Hey, it's the same guys." It's like it's been, and that guy's just really old now. It was Kramer. It's like,
dude, look, they're actually creating a fund that's called Reverse Kramer. And so there are two ETFs. One is when he says something is bullish, they are going to short it. It's legit. And then the other one is if he says something is going to go down, they go long with it. It is brilliant. I started laughing up when I found that out. I was going like, "Are you serious?" And he was actually ranting. He actually went on their show and was like, "Who's doing this?" Right? But I sat there and I was just like, "Dude, that guy's gonna be a millionaire. I mean, multi-billionaires, right? Because like he has been known to basically help his friends out and literally go through and offload a lot of stuff to his viewers. Like, it's literally what he does, right? So it's like, I'm really curious to see how well this ETF does. Like, I think it's going to do phenomenal.
I've got a better one for you to invest in. This is the ultimate one. You'll retire a rich man in probably a week. Is he just whatever I do, not what I say. What I say generally happens, but if I also do it, do the opposite. Just, if I said, "Oh, I'm buying puts in this," you know what, you sell the puts. If you whatever I say, just do the opposite. And in our little group that I hang out with, the DYOR, me and this other guy, we're very famous. They're saying, "Oh, I invested in that," and everyone's like, "Oh shit, we need to sell." It's just like clockwork. And so I always thought to myself, I need a counter investment fund that someone knows exactly what I'm doing and just does the opposite. And so when I'm like, "Man, I lost $1,000," they'll say, "Well, the counter fund made 10 grand." I'm like, "Oh, well, that was good."
It just means that you need to refine your technicals, and I can help out there. Like I can.
Right.
That's a simple, easy. That's an easy fix. Put some rules, some real solidified rules. It was funny. I was in a group this past weekend, and I'm just hanging out there. It was on Discord, and so one of the guys was a decent trader, and so he's explaining to me. But I go, "What's your win ratio? About 30%, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Oh, I said about between 30 and 35%. I go, "You're not understanding this, this, and this." And you understand, like, here's the thing. Most people understand, like, people have a hard time pulling out and trading. They become too monolithic and just focus on what's actually going on, the mechanics, versus pulling out and looking at the forest, right? And so once you pull back and you look at the forest, then you're actually able to trade. And so I explained to him, okay, so what you're doing is this. You're looking to trade the void. And so what happens is you don't fully understand the void, right, which is basically lack thereof of buyers and sellers in the chart. And so if you understand actually what's going on with it, you're able to mitigate where to get in and where to get lost, where to get in.
Right.
And so he understood almost 80% of it. But in trading, you need to understand it in a sequential way, right? Like you can understand 80% of it and think, "Oh, I have 30% of it meeting these rules and 20% of it meeting these rules over here," and then have like 30% in the middle that's messed up. But trading's not that way. Trading is sequential. When this rule is met, then this rule is met. This rule is met, this is rule met. If you have from point A to point W, right, all sequentially met, lined up in your way, that trade's going to work your way. It will work. But if you have the majority of the end and not the beginning, it's not going to work because trading is sequential. So I was explaining it to him. All right, boom, boom, boom. This is what you need to look at. This switches around. He hit me up today. I was really happy. And I go, He goes, dude, I've been trading this all weekend since our conversation. It's like, I feel like I'm cheating with the market. I go, bro, you had it all. You've been studying this long period of time, and someone just had to just pull you out and go, look, like, see, this is actually what the full Monet looks like. And stop looking at her smile and pull out and see the beauty of the full thing. And now he's killing it. And that's most traders. Most traders understand the nuances really well, but don't understand that you actually need rules behind the whole entire thing and being able to watch to see how the full market. That's why I look at the higher time frames. That's why I'm looking at the weekly. That's why I'm looking at the monthly, right? Is to be able to gauge. Well, if you're thinking, oh, we're going to rally all the way up here. No, we're not. We're not going to rally all the way up here because we're hitting that monthly moving average. And that's what's going to push this thing down, right? Or we may rally up, hit the supply zone, and then push back down, right, towards the end of these buyers at 80 and 70 mark. So,
Right.
and it's important, right? Whereas most people are looking at that 5 minute and they're thinking, oh, or they're looking at the 5 minute, 10 minute, 30 minute, 4 hour, maybe daily. They're thinking, oh, I trade small time frame. But they're like, oh, like the person who got into here, look at all these buyers sitting here, right? And they're like, oh, yes, we're going to go to the moon. They didn't realize on the monthly, bro, you have huge institutions coming in shorting this right here. But if you look at that 40 minute, or you look at that 4 hour, it's saying, hey, we should see this rally up. You look at that 5 minute, it's saying to us, oh, we should keep going, right? But we're not.
Right.
Because they're not putting any buyer weights down in here, knowing that they're about to turn it around, at least down to these lower levels here. So just those little things are just super important to understand. And I mean, I have no problem helping people out and helping them see what's actually going on. A Bizarro ETF. Yes, that's what it's called. I think it's called drill. It's like reverse. I think what it is. Yeah, Mako, you nailed it, dude. It's true. Anyways, my friend, I gotta head out of here, and we've been almost at this for 4 hours. So, dude, I would love to have you come on, or me come on to your show, whatever. We can trade back and forth and have fun. So, I think it would be good. I think it'd be real good.
Yeah, look at that. It's last I looked at it was an hour and a half. And I was like, wow, we've been on an hour. And you were on, 20 minutes before I came on.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes in this. Yeah, so I'm going to be, we'll be doing, we've got some news to start announcing with DYOR and our utility that we've been working on for a while. So I've been planning a series of shows around that. And I like to have some guests on that can do a little technical analysis on the kind of topic of the day. And so we'd love to have you on and to talk about those. But thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, my friend. Many blessings, and I will see you soon. Later. Bye. There we go. Guys, thank you so much for coming in today. Appreciate you. I am going to close this up here, but tomorrow we'll be here at 11 o'clock and having fun. All right, guys. Many blessings, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Remember, the market is moving up. Go long. The market is going down. Go short. Be smart. Keep your stops, and the only thing you have control over is your stops. So don't ever, and if you're getting stopped out, that means you have the wrong mindset in the market. So make sure you understand that. Okay, guys, many blessings, and I will talk to you guys soon.